being 7 o'clock, I'll open the meeting, we just
She's
are
still
trying to get a little
here.
organized,
If not,
that's all,
I can
so
just-
I apologize for starting a little bit early.
Okay, because it's official.
She's here early in the morning.
I mean, we have to do a letter, but it's official.
Do we have mail bills, anything that we have to open with?
We can always, if we have 15 minutes, so we can get some minutes or anything else
We
you'd
have,
like.
oh, we're not doing this?
Well, we have the letter from Warren Degnan, we can take that up at mail.
Is there not even? I think Patty called it.
Is that in the packet here, or?
Yes, I called it.
So it's your fault.
We received, passing the copies down, we received a letter from Lori Degnan from Osgood Road, and I'll read it, and then we can discuss what we would like to do with it. Dear Mr. Scanlon, I am writing with regards to your request to pay the advertising costs associated with the citizens petition for the solar moratorium presented at the town meeting of 2018. The amount of 120 was quite unexpected, and whether it be 120 or 500, we were not notified of any fee during the entire process. I have reviewed the Board of Selectmen's policy number 8 regarding citizen petitions, and no fee is mentioned. The planning board's webpage lists 17 fees, and that also does not list any fees associated with citizen petitions. While I understand you are all asking 508 to do the same, I believe this citizen petition is much different than others that may be for the benefit of a particular company or group. This article provided no financial gain for any of the signed petitioners. Our action and information brought insight and valuable information to your Board of Selectmen and residents. This article would not have been necessary if the former planner took action back when the state provided recommended guidelines to reasonably regulate solar back in 2014. I respectfully request that this fee be waived and your webpage be updated. If I do not receive a response in writing by August 1st, I will assume this matter has been rectified. Sincerely, Lori Degnan, 106 Osgood Road in Charlton, Mass. So the
So
issue.
if I just could, we've had 3 citizens petitions so far. We had the 508 zoning change, the solar moratorium, and then the recent one to rescind the bylaw. So in each case, I've notified the applicants that they should pay the public hearing fee, because it seemed to me that they were requesting the town to perform a service like any other applicant, and it only seemed fair to me that they pay the cost of that public hearing fee. But since we've gotten some pushback, Mr. Russell, who submitted the bylaw, the request to rescind the bylaw, and Mrs. Degnan both feel that it's the town's responsibility to pay for those public hearing notices. So I wanted to bring it to your attention and have you decide whether you think the applicants should pay when they submit a petition for bylaw change, or whether you would agree with Mrs. Degnan that it's part of the town's responsibility to pay for that cost.
What has council said has happened previously? What is typical in this case?
I haven't asked town council. I
Okay.
think it's a matter for the town to decide. It's not a legal question.
What has the town done in the
We
past?
have always,
that's
we
about what I
have
was curious
always
too.
just had people pay in the past. So, what this letter says is that it's not in writing. We just automatically assume it's for them and they pay. Because it's not in writing, I feel that we should just waive the 120 in this case, because I don't think we actually have a legal standing to collect it, since it doesn't say that's a fee.
But it's not just a
In this one
120.
specific, it's just the 120.
But you have other people who are gonna come back now and say the
Exactly.
same thing.
Not.
Well, I mean, I agree, I
Yeah.
think.
If you do it for
should-
one, you
should do
cannot
it.
do it for,
And Mr. Jennings paid the legal ad fee for his zoning change, so we'd have to refund him or give him credit for that,
Correct.
that expense.
Well, obviously, we've had zoning changes in the past, and they've always paid, and there's a history
Yeah, I
of
don't
that
know
going through.
that.
So that, I think that's what we need to
I
do.
mean, it
because
seemed
if
just
it's
fair
not
to me.
fair
Right.
to do it for some people, but not for
Correct,
others. So
right.
if it's something we've done in the past, then we should continue to do that, but document it. But if it's not something that we've been regularly doing, to penalize somebody for that, I don't think so.
So you would suggest that perhaps we have a policy to require that in the future, and that,
no, I think everybody should pay it. My feeling is everybody should pay it.
And
They've
we should
always
update
paid
the
it in the
website.
past.
Mhm.
They should continue to pay it in the future.
Okay.
And maybe they'll think twice about just doing things, because we are going to be getting hit with special town meetings, which is a cost incurred, which nobody pays for, we pick up the tab for everything.
Right.
And it's all because of citizens petitions. So, yes, I think they should pay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
They've always done it in the past, and how many are gonna come out of the wall and say, well, back 10 years ago, I filed one and I had to pay, I want a reimbursement? I think you're opening it up for a big thing if you don't.
Yeah, but we need to make sure that it has been done in the past and that we've actually collected.
And we
Sure
have
that-
collected, I don't, in the past, I don't think we've ever not, I think
Okay.
we've always just charged, just that it's just not,
Yeah.
it's just not in writing.
Right.
It's in, and technically, I mean, what happens, do we go to small claims court with this? I mean, I'm just trying to simplify just for the bigger process. Do we push it, do we waive this and clearly state we're not waiving anything else? Everybody, does anybody owe anything right now?
Well,
Yeah.
there are two that are,
Right.
that haven't been paid
Mhm.
yet. Mr. Jennings paid his.
But there's two other ones that happened
The
in
two,
this one.
right, Mrs. Dana, of course, you have that letter.
Right,
And Mr. Russell's also objected to the fee.
okay.
And I think it's fair that if it would go to small claims, the judge would look at it and say, well, the precedent is based on past experience, the applicant has always paid, so therefore they should have to pay in this
I think
case.
the judge would say, it's not written.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It's
concerned
not
about too,
written.
if
I mean,
it's
do we
not
wanna,
there.
And from here forward, I mean, now we have it in minutes and from here forward. I just, sometimes doesn't make any sense to bring it through court. If we could just kind of fix it and waive it and get it, and then going forward, as of right now, there'll be nothing, and we will not reimburse anybody for their fees.
Can we check with town council to see if that's?
I mean, is that, can we get advisement from town council then?
Sure.
Sometimes it just doesn't make any sense to go through all the motions for for small little dollars. By the time, if it goes to court, the cost of even getting there and sitting there, it's just kind of not worth it for 120, but we'll get, can we request some?
Sure.
I think we have to ask Robin to ask town
I'll ask
council,
him, sure.
just to make sure. That's just my feeling, and we'll see what he says and whatever he advises, we'll
I
just
think
follow.
that's the
Does that
best
make any
bet.
sense? Just go with the attorney.
To go with town council, absolutely.
I got it.
If
I
you
met
get
with,
hung up, if you don't get any response back, because she's giving you a deadline of August 1st.
I don't think she can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've done it in the past with things, get somebody's
And I
attention.
could respond and say we're looking into it.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. If you don't have a firm answer, at least
Okay.
tell them that we're checking with the attorney and we will get back as soon as we receive an answer.
We have a meeting again next week, maybe we can
Okay, sure.
discuss it.
Okay. Madam Chairman, the 7:05 meeting with concept review plan for 35 Main Street, they're not ready to meet this evening, so they asked to meet another time. It wasn't a public hearing, so we don't need to continue or open or anything like that. Which is a pre-application review meeting, so when they're ready, they'll get back in touch with me and we can schedule that again. For a piece of mail, don't know if you wanted to mention this community outreach meeting, we received that.
Legal notice of community outreach meeting regards an adult use marijuana establishment proposed by Foursquare Holdings LLC. Notice is hereby given that a community outreach meeting for Foursquare Holdings LLC proposed marijuana establishment is scheduled for July 16th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the Charlton Town Hall, 37 Main Street. The proposed marijuana cultivator, marijuana product manufacturer, manufacturer retailer, and manufacturer transporter is anticipated to be located at 144 Sturbridge Road, Charlton, Mass. Community members will be permitted and are encouraged to ask questions and receive answers from representatives of Foursquare Holdings LLC. A copy of this notice is on file with the town clerk, the board of selectmen's office, and the planning department. And a copy of this notice was published in the newspaper of general circulation and mailed at least 7 calendar days prior to the community outreach meeting to abutters of the proposed address of the proposed marijuana establishment, owners of land directly opposite on any public or private street or way, and abutters to the abutters within 300 feet of the property line of the petitioner as they appear on the most recent applicable tax list. notwithstanding that the land of any such owner is located in another city or town.
So
I'm having a
that-
hard
that-
time hearing you.
oh.
So this just says that there's going to be a public hearing for the
Public meeting.
next marijuana cultivator that wants to come into town. And it'll be on July 6th at 7 PM at the town hall.
July 16th.
16.
I'm sorry, 16th at the town hall. It
16th.
doesn't say where, I'm assuming in the selectman's
Selectmen's room.
office?
Yeah, I would say, or would.
Next Monday.
So next Monday, there's gonna be a meeting for the next marijuana grower that would like to come to Charlton.
What time?
7
o'clock.
PM in the town hall on the 16th, so Monday, 7 PM.
That obviously, for the last two,
Had a big crowd.
yeah.
We're just passing information
We
along.
just get notified usually like everybody else does, and we're just, making sure that the word is, out there.
I believe there was a legal notice in the paper too.
Yeah.
That was, so
Yep.
you can check with the town hall, check with the,
It's not actually a town requirement, it's a state requirement that they have a community outreach meeting.
Uh-huh.
So they are fulfilling their requirement to do that. It's not sponsored by any board, it's not a selectmen's meeting. They are just doing this on their own. So you're welcome to
Okay.
attend and find out what they propose to do.
Doesn't appear the facility's gonna house enough people, I think is a concern.
I mean, the auditoriums were full the last time they had,
Twice.
yeah, last two times.
Yeah, we have no say whatsoever.
Yeah.
But you know who would love your say is the selectmen. You can call their office, all of you, and you'll all get answers.
Thank you.
I have more things if you
Okay,
like.
perfect. Well, it's 7:16, so we can go on to, we can do the Sunset City.
Okay. Say this way.
Being 7:15, we have the continued,
If you're here for Sunset City, please sign in. Because it's a public hearing, we need to sign in, so that you know who's here.
Good evening.
so we had a couple of things to go over, and one of them was the approved uses. Do you want to go through the latest
Well,
briefs?
A couple of issues I think remain. One, the approved uses, make sure the board is comfortable with what you're proposing. Talk about parking and then noise. So in your revised site plan, you noted on the plan your low impact, medium impact, and high impact uses. So the question to the board is, are you comfortable with those? Do you want to suggest any changes? Because once you approve the site plan, then those uses noted on the plan will be permitted. So I think we want you to be aware of that and make sure that that's what you're comfortable with.
Do you want to switch places?
Oh, no, you're good. I know we had read through and discussed some of these activities at the last meeting too. We'll just-
oops, sorry.
In my opinion, those are consistent with the settlement agreement that the town and.
508 base is in your name.
It's been the name of the venue itself.
So, I mean, I think it's consistent with what we had agreed to, but again, it's to you as site plan approval authority to agree with it. So the median.
I would think that, looking at the different activities, the higher impact activities might require more infrastructure built to.
Well, they will only take place within the
Okay.
loop area,
Okay.
so that's already been built up, so that's correct.
So all that is gonna take place over here.
The high and medium only will take place in that
Right.
specific location. And then the other low impact uses could take place anywhere on the site.
Which is part of that original contract that the the agreement that was
Yes.
signed.
Yes.
So this, as far as you look at it,
Yes, it does seem fine to me. I would recommend that you
it
approve it,
agrees
but
with
you don't have
what
to.
the, okay.
We had a letter from Mike Andre,
Mhm.
dated June 4th. I believe you might have talked to him at the last meeting that I wasn't at. There seemed to be a couple of issues here that hadn't been fully addressed, so maybe we could go over those again and see whether
Okay.
they've been taken care of. Number one, there were some changes made in the field, which are more as-built kinds of information that should be shown on the as-built plan. So Mike is suggesting that you submit another plan set with those field changes that have been approved and made, so that we have a current set of plans as built.
Just for my clarification, Bill, this is the letter that Mike submitted prior to the last meeting?
Yes.
That,
Yes.
oh, okay, that we did go over with you guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike was.
So have you,
I believe,
are you
yes.
okay then with making, for number one, making those changes that you've already made in the field?
Yep,
Okay.
we already made those.
Okay.
They're just not showing on here, correct?
Right.
Correct.
3A, the plans show on-site parking for 357 vehicles, including oversized spaces for motocross riders and trailers. Under the settlement agreement, the Tough Mudder and Spartan races are allowed to take place before the issuance of a modified site plan approval, provided that the applicant prepare a plan for overflow parking for town approval. It seems likely that these types of events, and perhaps others, will more often than not require off-site parking. Have you talked about how you're going to accommodate events that have more
Absolutely.
parking than you have
Yep,
the
just as,
357 spaces?
just as we discussed at the last meeting and what actually happened. If there's a situation where we require off-site parking, we're going to do a traffic plan with the police department. That was discussed with everybody, and it's, what actually happened was a Tough Mudder event.
How did that go?
And, excellent. Yep, very well. Police, fire, very happy with the way things worked.
Did we hear
It was-
anything?
Yes,
We
you
have
do
this
have a
one.
letter, an email from the police chief
Okay.
regarding it, and he felt there were some minor issues that could be addressed in the future. I mean, it's a learning process, as issues come up, you can make changes to make it work better, but I don't think he saw any serious problems with the parking and traffic situation. Although there were some complaints by residents who probably have a different perspective, but the police chief seemed to feel that it was satisfactory.
We weren't allowed to speak last week,
And you're
last
not now.
meeting, so we couldn't tell you the complaints about parking
And traffic.
and traffic.
That was before the event was held. Our last meeting was before the event was held, so you couldn't tell us any problems, because they hadn't
Yeah,
happened
we
yet.
were here at the
Okay.
selectmen's meeting.
Right, guys, we really just need to rein it in. Our goal is to leave on time. We just need to get through this stuff, and then if there's time for questions, we can get.
Why can't the public debate?
We will,
What-
but we
this is
want to,
their-
let us
their
get
new
through.
proposal? It's a new
No,
proposal.
ma'am, let us just get through the pieces, and then we can ask some questions. We have other things to go through, and then we can discuss some stuff.
So there is a question about an area that you don't have marked as a parking area, but it's been cleared and sort of graded to accommodate off-site parking. Do you intend to use that as overflow type parking, or?
You're talking about 29A8 parcel, 29A8?
It's sort of adjacent to the, sort of,
This area right here?
yes,
That cleared
correct,
spot.
yes. So what's your intention with that
Our
part of the
intention
property?
with that is a hayfield. In 2014, the Jennings submitted a use change with the assessor to go from forestry to pastoral agriculture.
Mhm.
So it's been changed over for quite some time.
Mhm.
Right now, it's in the process of being prepped
Mhm.
for the fields.
Mhm.
And just like any other field in Charlton, occasionally it might be used for
Mhm.
overflow parking, but that's not its primary use, and
Mhm.
certainly wouldn't be a regular use.
So it might be used occasionally then for overflow parking. Do you have a particular concern about that, or are you okay with that? So how often do you think that would be necessary? How often do you anticipate the
Maybe a few times
357
a
that you
year.
have?
A few times a year.
And that's, you know, the problem with any grass field parking, whether it's Carpenter's lot down the street here that we use for Old Home Day,
Mhm.
or the fields over here at the Maynard Field when we have
Mhm.
Home Day or Blueberry Festival or anything else. Number 2 schoolhouse, the field's
Mhm.
there, it's always the same question,
Mhm.
weather permitting. And sometimes your plans don't work out and you just have to find alternative locations.
Mhm.
And that's why Spencer Fairgrounds are available,
Mhm.
Southwick Airport, things like that. So when we say we're gonna have a plan for off-site parking, overflow parking, that's typically what we do.
Mhm.
So,
Is that something that is, when you discuss the plan with the police department, is this something that is also discussed and handled with them? So this,
Absolutely.
if you say, you know, we're gonna need some of this overflow, they're gonna be part of the whole process.
yep.
And
On the
then-
last one, just to put in a side note, weather is always an issue. So one of the things that the people who were leasing out the venue from us did, Tough Mudder, was they actually contacted the schools. So they said, if we're going to need asphalt parking, weather permitting, we'd like to contract the schools. So they reached out to the schools, and, you know, we see that as part of ultimately the benefit coming to town. If we can, you know, shuffle along in that direction, and we want to start doing some scholarships or something, everybody's happy. So, well, not everyone.
So then if you could just make a note on the plan, what your intention is for that area, so that future boards will know what that use is
Sure.
intended for, so that it's intended as a hayfield, but maybe occasionally used for overflow parking.
Sure.
Okay. The issue of off-site parking, you know, the town bylaw requires for independent parking or 5 or more spaces that you get either a site plan or a special permit, depending on the district, and it's not allowed in the agricultural district. So anytime you intend to have off-site parking where you might bus people in, you need to check the zoning bylaw to see whether that's permitted in that particular district,
Noted.
okay?
Okay.
I think that's about it for Graves Engineering Review. Do you have any other questions on the site plan before we get to the noise issue?
We're all good with the approved uses, we talked about that in detail the last meeting. Is everybody good with the parking? I think all of us, the occasional overflow, I think that should be, and it's like Bill said, as long as it's marked on the plan, that's good. And now onto the
So,
big.
I do have one question. What is considered occasional? If there's 10 events there a year and 8 of them require off-site additional parking, is that occasional, or is that?
Would you like to define that term? I mean,
That's I'm trying to, I think we should define it.
do you have a suggestion?
Some sort of definition of what is occasional, so that it's not all the time, it's not every event, it's not, you know, otherwise, there needs to be site plan board and.
Right, okay, that's a valid point.
So the only number that exists to define temporary right now is 180 days, which is half a year. Our intention is not to use or to need overflow parking for half of the year. Like we said, we're looking at probably a few times a year, if that, to have overflow parking. And if you're talking about off-site parking, that's outside of the site plan, that's outside of the property. So it could change from one event to another depending on who's leasing it or what their needs are. So like Russ is talking about weather conditions being a factor. So they might need paved parking. If it's not a factor, they're looking at fields, but it could be in Sturbridge, it could be in Spencer, completely out of Charlton's jurisdiction. And the only thing that we're looking at is actually reducing the traffic, because then people are being bussed in 50 at a time in one vehicle versus single vehicle traffic. So it's actually a benefit to the area to have that off-site parking.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. If that's, if the events that you're having are warranting continual off-site parking or parking in fields or whatever, then this will be a lot of traffic, so I'm not sure,
Well,
I totally agree with that.
I'll clarify too, that you're talking about events, and we do intend to be open for daily operation. So the parking that is already specified in the site plan is more than enough for
That's what
what's
we're
needed for
expecting.
daily
Yep.
operation.
Yep.
Just like you're looking at the schools, right? They have so many parking spots to accommodate what they're expecting their attendants at the school to be on a daily basis. But then you have town meeting, and you have cars piled up across all the lawns and, you know, up the sides and everything, and that's once in a while. That's not something that needs to be considered for site plan. If you're going off-site, you're not even looking at the school, it's really hard to link the two together.
But I think the point is valid. There should be a limit to how often you use that. Unless, if you want to call it a permanent overflow parking, then I think it needs to be designed that way. If it's only going to be occasional, we need to know what that means.
But Mr. Clay, you're
I'm
talking
talking about-
specifically about off-site
I'm
parking,
talking about
correct?
off-site or the temporary parking
I
that
think,
you.
yeah, we're talking about temporary parking.
It's also part of
Yeah.
it.
Because, yeah, what we call, the bylaw calls independent parking, as I mentioned, has to be allowed in that particular district. And then that's really a traffic management problem for the police chief.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for a number, I could honestly say, if we used it a dozen times a year, I'd probably be surprised. So that field across the street, it's like, that's once in a great while.
Yeah.
So
So you're saying
that's not,
under 10?
I'd say 10 or 12 is a more than reasonable number. Naturally, from the business perspective, I'd never want to limit myself too severely, and saying occasionally, you know, what does that mean? So,
If temporary is 180 days, maybe cap it at 15 to kind of meet in the middle.
It's 10%.
I mean, and plus, we have the police
Exactly.
chief's discretion of making sure that that parking is
Adequate and
adequate and
sufficient.
safe and, you know, and we know that, we see the letters how detailed the police involvement is at these events.
Absolutely.
So, because it's being so monitored, I like regulation, but we gotta be careful to over-regulate and say, oh, you only can have 10 events a year, sorry. We have to be careful, to have that balance. So, I mean, on the plans, you can identify it as, the hayfield and
Well, of
put
course,
overflow
just the
parking.
hayfield.
in general, I can say, overflow parking areas could be used more than
I think
15 times.
it is not
a year.
into our advantage to make them gravel that up or pave that. We don't want our land to be covered with pavement. I mean, if it doesn't have to be, because you have cars parked there 10 times a year.
Right. So new runoff issues.
At least that's my opinion, I don't know how the rest of the
Yep,
board.
yeah.
And if we start defining this up as a parking area, now we're gonna start having the guidelines that, you know, gravel or, you know, I just don't think that's the benefit of the land to take away from just open field. I don't know how the rest of the board feels on that, but that's my opinion. And to let the police department's discretion,
Let them do what they do best, exactly.
that's their job, you know.
Okay, yeah. Moving on to the noise issue, I think you got a copy of the memo from Jim Philbrook, the health director, regarding the noise issue. Do you want to read that?
At the last meeting, we had some complaints about when there was noise, that there was nobody to call and nobody came and people were on vacation and backups and everything else. So as we discussed, we contacted James Philbrook, the health director, to ask what the process was and, you know, what our role, what his role was. And we got, I'm just gonna read the response, everybody can grab a copy. The Board of Health, to the planning board from James Philbrook, regarding noise complaints. The Board of Health or its agents will perform, oversee, or provide instructions for all noise level measurements. As an option, the board may require the party responsible for suspected excessive noise to hire a qualified sound engineer to undertake a study to quantify noise emanating from the premises and subject a written report of its study to the board. Noise level measurements will employ appropriate equipment that is properly calibrated to industry standards as noted below. Noise levels shall be measured on the A-weighted scale of a noise meter at a distance of 50 feet from the source, or at its various distance from the noise source, or from the boundary of a property used for residential purposes, or any combination of these, and shall include measurement of pure tone if appropriate. The precise locations of the measurement sites, as well as date, time, duration of the noise and noise levels measured will be recorded in a manner that is acceptable to the Board of Health and will be made a permanent part of the Board of Health records. For the purposes of determining sound levels as set forth in this section, the following guidelines shall be applicable. All persons conducting sound measurements to assess compliance with the section shall be trained in the current techniques and principles of sound measurement equipment and instrumentation. Instruments used to measure sound level shall conform as a minimum to the specifications of American National Standard for type 1 precision or type 2 general purpose sound level meters. The sound level meter to be used for such measurement shall be capable of measuring and displaying values of the equivalent sound pressure level and the maximum sound level weighted decibels for established noise limits. The following steps as listed below shall be followed when preparing to take sound level measurements. The instrument manufacturer's specific instructions for the preparation and use of the instrument shall be followed. The sound level meter shall be calibrated before and after each set of measurements. Ambient background sound level shall be measured with the sound level meter for the slow response. Impulsive noise shall be made with the sound level meter set for fast response. Do you want me to read through the thresholds? It just, the level, it isn't about more process, it's about the daytime hour levels, nighttime hour levels. I don't think anybody really wants to hear me just read. Okay. So what they're saying is that it's pretty much the Board of Health is the board that handles these problems, these complaints, and they do go out and they test when there are complaints. I know the issue was that there was nobody on call, and that might have just been a day that there wasn't coverage. There's supposed to be coverage all the time, and when there's nobody to receive calls, there are backups. So I guess the question is, what from here do we do with sound? So what?
Well, do you have any questions or comments about what Mr. Philbrook has said?
No, I have absolutely no objection to Mr. Philbrook being the presiding authority. And
Okay.
he is,
Okay.
it's Board of Health, that's the law,
Okay.
that's the way it is. And we have to abide by the rules and regulations, just like everyone else.
So I think the way you described it is accurate. If there's a complaint, then it's directed to the Board of Health, who will go out and take sound measurements. There's a state standard threshold here, which if they're exceeded, then they're in violation, and then they would be subject to whatever penalties the Board of Health might impose.
And it's saying that if there's so many of these, that we as a board can come back and ask for a test. Am I reading that right? That it says that as an option, the board may require the party responsible for suspected excessive noise to hire a qualified sound engineer.
That's, refer to that board as the Board of Health.
So
The first
so
sentence
that-
says the Board of Health, so that's
So-
the board that could.
So if there's so many complaints, they could force a test.
Yes.
Does that require 508 to go before the Board of Health before it has one of these high-impact activities or anything that might create excessive noise, or is that they just?
I don't think it's in
Yeah.
advance, I think it's only if there's a complaint,
Yeah.
the way I'm reading this.
So the letter sets up structure.
Exactly.
That's what it creates.
Right.
I'm glad that we finally have it.
It says that they do all the tests, they go out, they follow all the guidelines, and then if it's happening too much, or is that, they can go ahead and hire an engineer to do that study. And we did already do a noise study. Can I open up to questions, comments, or how do we do it?
I guess if the
Let's-
board has any other comments,
We-
Dick
I-
goes first.
I just have one comment, I don't think we clarified it when we were talking about occasional use of the overflow parking, and Ross mentioned something like, up to a maximum of 15 times, is that
Alicia did.
agreeable?
Alicia did.
Okay, whoever did, I thought that was a good round number, and
Mhm.
I,
So somebody has to count. I assume that's the police chief.
I
right?
should say.
I would suspect
Right.
the police would be the best counters.
Right.
Is
but-
that forever?
I think that could be a working number, because if 15 becomes, so let's say 10 years from now, 15 is just not enough because the business is growing, I don't think this needs to be something that is concrete. They have to come back before the board and have that discussion, but kudos to them if they're doing so well that 15 all of a sudden is too small.
But to that point, though, I think if it's necessary, they should redesign it as a parking lot
Okay, fair
Right.
enough.
with
Right.
the appropriate drainage measures to ensure that there's
I
no.
don't see it as a hard number unless we put it in that way, but more of a guideline so that it's, if it's continually used and it's noticed,
Okay.
I like that.
So we could do like
Yeah.
an IE 15?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's something that we would just be noted, because that would be a change of use,
Correct.
which would have to be brought
Back
before
before
us.
us.
Does that make,
Does that sound
Perfect.
acceptable?
Perfectly, yeah.
and because we'll have so much police involvement, and this will be flagged with them, there could be a point too where, that's
Absolutely. They're not gonna do this unnoticed.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing will be unnoticed, guys, so. Now, do we have any more comments or questions? Let's open it up and get some, and listen to some of the concerns. I know we have an email from the last,
I do have one question before we go. So in the last meeting, there was some talk about fencing between, on the property lines and the borders between the neighbors. Has that been addressed, or?
Yes,
has that been taken care of?
two issues. One, this is a letter from our environmental consultant about finishing up the last remaining item on the site plan, which is the wetland replication. And then here's two pictures, and we'll send along others, of the barbed wire fence that was installed on the property line, so that it's a definite deterrent from crossing over in the future. And we're gonna make up some little signs that say 508 boundaries.
That would be a deterrent.
And
Barbed wire?
it's understandable that, people are out in the middle of the woods and, okay, we all know the stone wall is a boundary, other people may not, and so,
Barbed wire is less fun to get stuck on top of.
yeah.
Barbara, it might be worse than electric.
Yes, I would agree.
This letter it states
So-
that the rest of the final wetland replication has been complete, so they're all in line with all of the,
All our
all the environmental stuff.
Yes, they had submitted a check as security for completion of the wetland replication. So as soon as we hear back from the conservation agent, then we can release that security.
I'm not gonna cross that.
And you'll do the signs too, so,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, and good fences make good neighbors, so.
Can we keep these?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of emotion, so I'll open up to questions, but can we keep them, on the subject? And,
Want to go up there, or?
yeah, sorry.
Bob Brunel, Brookfield Road in Charlton. Couple of questions. I'd like to know if any sound mitigation structures have been put up for the high activity events that are being planned. And if not, is the planning board going to provide some sort of restriction or requirement that it does not, any activity in that high impact area does not exceed the DEP limit of 10 decibels over the ambient? Because it is going to affect 200 or so families located in Sturbridge and along Brookfield Road.
That's an excellent point, and actually that was just addressed by the letter that we read, because that is a Board of Health purview, and although we cannot put in sound structure, it's a reactionary process, so until they do something bad, we can't do anything. And we're going to assume that they're not going to do anything bad. Unfortunately, it's the same as you can't be arrested for speeding until you actually go over the speed limit. So per the Board of Health, per that person, that's under their purview, not ours.
Okay, so you're electing to take an approach of non-proactivity here.
Well, they did the original sound test, which, that's the original baseline. And I don't think anything has changed structurally, has it?
Actually, there have been some modifications from the original plan, and one of those is, that, and if I'll just point it out to you.
Yep, please.
And maybe Mr. Cornell would like to actually see it himself. This area here has been lowered a lot from the original plan. This is the area that's closest to Roadville Road, okay? So what you have right now is you have this type of situation right here. So this embankment is about 30 feet high. So it's a natural sound
From here to
at
here?
this point in time, right here in this corner.
Okay.
Right here, it goes like this. So it actually kicks the sound this way, to which is, the Mass Pike is over here. And when Mr. Brunel says Brookville Road and Podunk Road, they're over here. So it was purposely cut into that hill to kick the sound this way. So it's a very, very steep grade right there. Like I say, about 20 feet high. So you can't build a bigger sound. Well, okay, you could build a bigger one.
Right.
Right.
25 feet is
And ours is
very
less.
sufficient. As well as a lot of berms and things down in here that just kick the sound around. So when there's high activity things going on in here, the sound is going this way, this way, this way, this way. Yeah, purposely designed.
Well, 2 points. I beg to differ that the sound barrier is going to stop the sound, because if you do a search on sound barriers, you will find that barriers only work on expressways, because the sound travels up over the barriers, and 100 feet later, it starts to curve down. All right, that's my point number one. Point number two, the test that they did do was a joke. It was little kids running small motorbikes that really didn't serve any purpose at all. So to Alicia's point, we'll wait.
Yep.
You people should read the last noise that the engineers, the town engineers did. Should read his report. We never got to hear it because Mr. Gordon shut down public debate in the middle of our conversation. So we never got to hear what the sound report was.
You mean the responding, what the engineer had in response to what
Yes, and at
so
one
what our
point-
consultant said about their
Mr.
engineer?
Manges is his name, the engineer. And his report said that the noise was definitely going to exceed the state limit.
Through the chair, we're not really here to debate things. I mean, this is not a debating issue. That debate was all done years ago. It's, yeah, this is questions. And sound is sound, and we have, you know, a very good document here that we're going to go by. That I just wanted to put that in.
I agree. This has been a very long process, and we've had plenty of discussion on it. The control in place to protect you is the Board of Health, that's their job to make sure that they don't have dangerous levels of noise. And if that happens, then please contact them, and there's really nothing further that we can do. We're not here to look at any more design factors, or we're really
Can you
here.
explain to me why this new plan that he's revising, it's completely different from all the other studies and plans that they did for motocross?
And for the sake of formality, do you mind coming up and identifying yourself, please?
Can I stand here? I'm Donna Brunel on Brookfield Road.
Thank you. So, all this went to court, and there was an agreement that was signed, and we're doing what we need to do per that agreement. So
I
can tell you
understand that.
so everything else, right now, we're doing what we are supposed to be doing. We're moving ahead with the signed legal agreement.
But the last
We have-
time when they brought a site plan review, okay, we had a public debate meetings for 6 months.
And then they went to court, and this is what was submitted per the lawyers that was acceptable. So they've done everything that they're supposed to do, and I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to live next to, and we sympathize, we do. We live
I'm
next to
not
other.
asking for sympathy, I'm only asking for you as a board to do what's right for the town of Charlton.
Legally, we are doing everything that we can do, but our hands are tied. There was a lawsuit in place, there were
None of
settlements
those
agreed.
vehicles, those high-impact vehicles, have been approved. This board hasn't even approved them.
She's right in that way. These activities have been approved.
Thank you.
And these were approved pending site plan approval. So if there's
Yes.
high-impact activities that have sound issues,
No, it
is there
was-
anything we can do?
None of
about
them have
that?
been approved.
It was approved through the
Mrs.
sound, not
Vincent,
the
you
vehicle.
know that.
Through the
Yeah,
sound of the vehicle.
we can't control what type of vehicle goes
Correct.
in there. We can only look at the total sound. And if that sound is now violated, it's the Board of Health who,
But you're approving, with the site plan approval, you're approving the high-impact vehicles.
As long as they don't exceed 10 decibels. If
Well,
they do, they get shut down.
obviously,
So
but
that's kind of.
We won't know that until a noise
that
study is done.
That is kind of, exactly. And until he actually has an event where these things happen and it's measured, you're not gonna get an accurate result of what the sound issues are gonna be. So he can do another test, he can have, we can have another dozen motorcycles go out there, but until it's an event and it's a full open race, that's the only way you're gonna know. So when that happens, it's really, it's in his best interest to run these events under the law and under the sound requirements. I'm sure he would hate to get shut down in the middle of a race after he's sold 300 tickets and has to pay everybody back because he can't let them race. So until I think that first race happens and it can be measured under full race, then at that point, they can shut them down and say that's it. And then at that point, I mean, if it is proven that they violate that sound ordinance, is there a requirement for them to come back for site plan approval for mitigation,
no,
or is that just?
now it goes to the zoning enforcement officer, right? The Board of Health to deal with,
Okay.
to deal with any legal stuff that they need to.
Okay.
It's like when somebody has too much trash in their yard, and it goes the legal process. There's a legal process to, if it's constant violations, fines, and everything else. But it is out of our hands, like like parking and drainage. That's really our, getting the noise study done, getting.
I think the vehicles should be, if they were part of the site plan review the last time, then they should be part of it this time.
This was created by a legal agreement that was reviewed by the attorneys that negotiated this deal. We weren't even part of this negotiation. Honestly, it was walked to us and said, this is what the town signed. Make it happen. And we're just we're following the legal process. And there's really nothing else we can do here. You can, again, it was signed, Kurt was the signer on the agreement. You can call him tomorrow morning and have him. And the selectmen were a big part of it too. They all would love your call and to see why they instructed us to do this. They would, again, love your call.
Because in all fairness, you can put a motorcycle, soup up the muffler, and it could be 12 decibels, and then you could put up something else, do everything to mitigate the sound, and it could be quiet. So it's all sound reactionary.
We've been this
I know.
since 2013. This is how long, I can tell you, I can cite chapter and verse from clubs all over this country. So, you know, I do know what I'm talking about.
And nobody's saying you don't, truly, but we're just going by what we legally are allowed to go by. Our hands are tied.
And even less because we have a signed agreement on what we were,
So in other words, the town agreed with Mr. Jennings to make you, as a board, approve these vehicles.
Well, it's not the vehicles. What they agreed is that sound is more important than how it gets there. So they can't go over 10. That's the magic number. No matter what you're driving, it can't go over 10. And they all decided that they didn't want to say they can't use XYZ vehicle because XYZ vehicle, they could soup up to make it 12 decibels. But no matter what vehicle that they put on that site, no matter what, ever, it has to be below 10.
And the same thing with the bigger vehicles. They can put
Yes.
filters on them to keep the
Correct.
sound down on the bigger vehicles too. You can get something that looks like this big bus
That's
and they
correct.
can put filters and modify the sound, make it louder.
They had a plan to stack seat containers for noise mitigation. What happened to that, Mr. Jennings? No, he's silent.
Out
The
of
noise
respect for the
mitigation
board, I'm being silent.
Is a big,
If they would like me to answer any question, I certainly will.
I think we just need to, is there any other comments that will add to the conversation that haven't been brought up?
Yes. The last time I came to you, I'm Warren Cisco from Charlton, Mass. The last time I came, I had concerns about people going over the line and defecating on my property. There's one person with a picture of it. There's another picture where somebody did their business and left their butt wipes there. 2 instances in one little small area on a mile of common boundary. I did call the police. I have here a copy of the police report from that incident if you'd like to see it. That's the stone wall with a boundary line they bumped and knocked down in places. Here's a jungle gym thing right on the boundary line.
I thought that's where they put up the barbed wire, no?
Is that what the fence
It
is
is.
now?
Did this happen prior to that?
Yeah, I'm not interested in barbed wire. I want something to stop the
property, so
trash
you don't
from
need to
blowing
be concerned
over,
about that.
which I have all these pictures here of trash. It doesn't exist, according to Mr. Jennings, the last time I was up here. There's that sign, that's what it looked like on the ground. When I tipped it over, it's a handicap sign. This is all my pictures of trash, and this is all in one little few 100-foot area, right along the line where I actually trimmed the brush back and weed whacked
Bill,
it during the event.
Who takes care of things like this? Who oversees something? Is this
I
the
was-
Board of Health also?
I would say, yes.
Yeah, I brought it to the Board of Health, and when I left, Jim told me that it was my fault the trash was there, because I didn't let the volunteers go on my property with no liability or no workman's comp and go pick it up. I don't want the volunteers there any more than I want the trash. This isn't gonna stop, and I don't want people traipsing around my property every time they have an event because it all blows over there. I need something in place that stops this trash from coming on my property. I want something for a fence that stops the people from coming. And barbed wire isn't it. These ain't cattle that we're trying to stop.
So my,
When you have a solar farm, they put a chain link fence around it to keep people out. They don't put barbed wire. Barbed wire is the cheap way of doing it to say I have a fence.
If I could address that issue. Our intention by stringing the barbed wire is so that on event days, to alleviate Mr. Cisco's concerns, what we would do is drape the orange square graded construction fencing along the open portions of the venue on the top section where he believes the trash is blowing onto his property. Naturally, anyone can come in here with pictures of trash on property and say, this came from wherever.
Okay,
and-
so during events, you'll put the orange fencing or whatever to block it from the trash going through.
Correct.
I have, my kids have balls and water balloons, and they throw them in my neighbor's woods, and I make my kids go and pick them up. I think it's part of, things are gonna happen. You're gonna in the minutes, part of the conditions that during these events, you'll ensure that there is protection. Things may get through. Now the barbed wire fence will prevent people from going over there and whatever they're going to the bathroom, whatever on the properties, and there'll be fence.
And as an added note, when Mr. Cisco voiced his concerns to the police, as well as the Board of Health, who was on site for the event, and we spoke with Mr. Philbrook, we stated, if there's ever an issue and someone thinks that some trash from our property blew over, we would be more than glad to send over employees on Monday morning, not volunteers, our employees with workman's comp, general liability, could always list Mr. Cisco as an additionally insured, whatever his insurance company needed, and we would more than go through and pick up anything that he believed blew over. Naturally, the situation depends to develop between neighbors such as ourselves in this situation where I'm not so sure he has the plan he's talking about, and that's my opinion.
Okay,
He has his.
See this picture right here of the stone wall? That's probably more stone wall than that property boundary has. Picture in your mind how high a 40-inch orange fence is. It ain't any higher than the stone wall that's already there, and the trash is still coming over it. We need something higher than a little orange fence. And I don't want to have trash every single event and have them come on my property every single event and pick it back up. That's like ridiculous.
I'd appreciate if you would step
All right,
back
let's-
from the table.
No,
I think that
let's-
you're being a little offensive there.
Is there anything, there isn't anything that we can really do to alleviate this?
He's
I don't-
filed the police report through the chair. He's filed the police report and everything. It's up to the police if they want to act on it or not, or whatever. You're going to have, even in town and other places where there's a business and their debris, the wind catches it and blows bags across the street, across Masonic Home Road over to individuals' homes.
Right, we have McDonald's bags on the roads,
On Masonic Home Road even. Okay,
Main Street
from
has
Route
one
20.
big.
Right, I mean, it's, people are pigs sometimes, okay? And I truly believe that, and I've seen enough of it. They are pigs.
10,000 people this close to my boundary line running, you're gonna get it. You just can't help it. I don't want 10,000 people running down my boundary line. The last time I was here, I asked you folks, how many people are in a high-capacity event? A lot of people are gonna come, how many would that be? You answered 1,000, 2,000. I go to a selectmen's meeting to find out there's gonna be 9,000 estimated people coming, which ended up being 10,000 according to the Board of Health.
We get information as it comes along and things change. Again, we've
Yeah,
been
but that's a
dealing with
heck of a
this.
change in a few weeks.
We've
when-
been dealing with this for years, and then the lawyers stepped in, and the lawyers handed us this, and we're doing what the lawyers told us to do. I can't.
Well, a good fence makes good neighbors,
So we're-
according to Mr. Russell. A barbed wire fence isn't much of a fence to keep people out. If that's not what they're putting around solar farms to keep people out, that's not what they should be putting around these 10,000 people events to keep people out.
Where on the site plan is your property?
This blue line is where the race run, and this is my property on this side in the red.
So that was during the Tough Mudder was the
Yes,
Vineyard Road.
that's along, this distance is almost a mile.
And the track itself, oh, sorry. So, okay. So it's not near the track itself, though, or?
And if you want, that's from their website, Tough Mudders, that's where I got the information from.
That's that.
What's your parcel down?
So these are just these running events
your
where
parcel.
people happen to be
Down there?
running
Right.
for long distance through the property.
Yes.
This is my property here, you track, this is where their finish line was, right along here.
So this.
So this clearing,
Right down there.
right there, is this clearing right here.
Okay.
Just to be clear on the site plan, do you want to Mr. Cisco's property? That shows larger and in relation to everything that we've been reviewing. This parcel over here.
It actually starts over here, goes all the
Yeah,
way
it does.
along, all the way over to
Yeah.
there.
But-
So most of that entire.
For the,
side.
okay. So is there any demarcation between this property here?
A stone wall, that's all there is.
Just the wall along the track area?
And
Yeah.
the photos of the barbed wire fence.
Okay, that goes
are
along there.
along here
That's
where
it.
it has the closest edge.
And that's not stopping trash, and I haven't seen the barbed wire fence, but I don't expect it to be any higher than the wall is, and people are stepping right over the wall. And this was all predicted before the race, when I came to the last meeting, that all these concerns would happen, and they did.
I suppose the board could require that there be a weekly monitoring of trash, and someone walk the property line and pick up the trash that's happened to blown over the line.
Right, but the problem is that
It's gonna happen
he
repeatedly.
doesn't want,
But it has-
he
right,
doesn't
it has
want,
to be
he doesn't
at
want
every
508
event.
employees over.
Yeah,
over
he
the-
doesn't, he won't let them come onto his
And
property to
trash.
pick up the trash that's on his property.
That's what the issue is.
That's-
And you're more than, well, you will ensure that the trash is, will you let them go and pick the trash the next day up?
Well, no, you were gonna come on, maybe it was you, was gonna come on Earth Day and go group and pick it up.
Oh, I didn't say I was gonna clear. You were gonna. I already.
You were gonna
my neighbor-
organize it.
my
Totally
property,
unacceptable.
my
We would
property
be more
abuts
than
120
willing
and there's no
to do
fence there
that
either, and I
if
walked
we're
that
allowed
on
to
Earth
do
Day.
that. Naturally, like I was getting into, and this is why we're fortunate enough to have a Board of Health that does deal with issues of this.
They did
subject
nothing.
matter.
They never
Well,
cited
they-
anybody.
They deal with the subject matter.
Okay,
and
so
They didn't
let
deal
me,
with
let me
that.
just, let me just like cut this off. When there's an event, you contact Russ if there's trash
I'm
and
not
give
talking
him,
with Russ.
and give
I'll
him.
contact you if it's
That's fine. I will contact you. If there's trash, and the next day you'll make sure that's picked up. So we just needed somebody that he can walk over to the property,
I need
his staff.
certificates of insurance for everybody gonna be over there.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Both liability and workman's comp.
Naturally.
okay, so that's what will
And I
happen.
don't want him there at all.
Okay, so one of your employees, you'll go, and I just saw this problem, and then, so that's in the minutes,
I love the solution.
and you guys will communicate, even if it's through me, because I love to get like 47 emails a day, and we'll make it happen.
Now, what are you gonna do about the fence, keeping people out?
We
You
can't,
something
I don't
about
think we
wire,
can, I don't think we
the
can,
fencing?
I think the expense of putting up a fence during that much property line
No,
would be
no.
absolutely like not
I mean,
happening.
I didn't say the whole property line. I didn't say
I
it.
mean, I think it actually kind of
I want the
stop the
fence.
wildlife from going through.
That's not
and-
stopping
and-
nothing, because most of it won't have a fence. I want just the fence separating our properties for as far as 508 has cleared up to my property line. If they didn't clear up to my property line, I probably don't need a fence there.
I don't
There's-
think-
There's areas over further on this side that they haven't, there's wetlands and stuff, there's plenty of buffer there. I'm concerned about all of this here.
I just don't think that we can make them at a fence at this point. I feel like the board's not with me on this, so so that's the agreement. So with.
Do you have a seat,
Russ
please?
will-
And
Russ will.
could we just discuss this among us? We're
So-
not talking about
So
anything, we
Russ
want
will
to talk
pick up-
among ourselves.
The Russ will pick up the trash, and however it works, honestly, email me.
I don't
Even if
do
I'm not
email,
sharing anymore,
so-
I will give you my email, and I'll even get involved. Or you can email anybody on this board and we'll
I don't
contact
do
them.
emails.
I'll give you my cell phone number. And I'll make sure that you guys communicate so you can get that trash picked up. I don't think a fence is necessary. I
Trash
think at
is
this
only one-
point.
I don't think a fence around the whole piece of property is necessary, but I do question this area here where this commercial property is cleared right up to the boundary. Now, most commercial businesses have a buffer. If there's no buffer between the parking area or the track area up here, from here to here, a fence during that property, because that's gonna be high usage area. This is just something up here that uses occasionally and wouldn't see.
This last Mudder event, the concession stands weren't up here, the finish line was. In other events, when they had concession stands up there, there was stuff blowing all the
Yeah, I
time.
mean, but that's-
We had health nuts running, people that are probably more concerned with the environment, less likely to dump trash, and the trash generated was further away. So I didn't get as much trash on this event as I would expect on others.
Russ, what's the scale on this?
It should be noted in the bottom.
What is the distance from here to here? Just the describe the distance.
It's about, from here
Yep.
to here is about 900 feet.
Okay.
And
So,
this is
and
his
just-
property right here?
Just so you know, this property here, all this property right here, Mr. Cisco clear cut all the way back to here. This is all clear cut. If anyone was concerned about keeping a private buffer between property lines.
All right,
they
this
would
is,
not clear cut.
everybody sit.
I'm clear cutting for
My-
beef
Here's
cow.
the problem, we're
I don't
just,
know what that is.
I'm just done with this conversation. I don't think we're gonna get, I don't think anybody's gonna be happy at the end of this conversation. So if there's trash, 774, here's my number, call me and I will call Russ. I don't even have your number, but I'll make sure I get it. Jane has it. Just to get the trash picked up. That's my cell phone number. See how much I love this town?
Hours that I could call you?
Call me anytime you wanna call me. And is there any other questions that any other?
Not only did I want a fence, I wanted a little buffer, maybe some bushes planted to stop the trash. A chain link fence with some bushes, I think would
just
stop
can't-
it.
I mean, you can plant them on your side.
Yes.
Why should I have to plant bushes to stop his trash?
Just because it's his property and we've already gone through all of
Okay.
these.
We'll leave the trash issue alone.
Okay.
What are we gonna do about people going over the boundary line, defecating on
That's
the property?
a
That's
legal
the
thing,
police.
call the police.
I did.
Put up-
You
put
know-
up-
You know what become
Put
of
up
it? Nothing.
Put up a camera, put up a
I do,
camera.
I took a picture, you have a picture of
Put
it.
up a video camera and then give all that footage, that is way beyond us.
Okay,
As the
when I
planning
brought
board, way
that
beyond
picture
us.
to the Board of Health, Jim wouldn't even look at it, wouldn't even let me take it out of the package.
See how nice
He
we
was
are?
way too sensitive to see
I
those
think,
that picture.
I think that's a police matter. I think
I talked to
trespassing
the
is
chief
a
of
police
police.
matter. I think, do the video cameras and give them the video they have. It's trespassing.
I have a
Police matter.
picture, I gave it to the police, I
Take it
gave
up
it to
with
the
the
Board of
police.
Health.
That's not
You know what I
me.
got from it? Zip.
But I can't do it. I mean, that's a police matter.
That's way
So
beyond
can
our
you do
control.
something to
No.
make them
I
stop
can't do
going over
anything.
by means of a fence?
Our board,
No.
it's totally off. I mean, we have to be very careful. Our board each has a role, and that's not our role. Our role is to, today, is to deal with the legal signed agreement and get this cleared up. Is there any other discussion? Amy?
Yes. There was people walking on Brookfield Road going back and forth to the parking.
And that's the police matter again, not.
Was anybody cited for it?
We don't know.
We are only here to discuss the site plan itself, unless it has in particular to do with the site plan.
They
The
weren't.
police are very involved in these events.
When it was pointed out to them physically by my wife, they said, oh, we didn't even know. They didn't even speak to me.
And we have an email in response from the police department that
I'm gonna read-
is.
There's
No,
a
they
comment
got
on
it.
that. There's a comment on that. You
It was sent
you
to
can
him.
read that.
This was sent to him, isn't that?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, no, it's his one.
Yep,
Yeah,
so,
police
so,
chief said he's free to walk on a public way.
yep.
Yeah, so,
It was-
here.
It was requested that they do something to prevent it, and they did, but if people wanna walk on the road, they
Can't stop.
they can't stop.
So the restriction really didn't have any teeth at all.
It was-
Now, what about the rented four-wheelers that we have a video of Sunday morning driving up Brookfield
And the
Road,
police are looking into that.
unregistered, uninsured?
Yeah,
What about
police are
that?
looking into
Yeah, that's a
And
police
I
matter, and we
think Mr. Jennings
can't,
was
I mean,
talking.
technically, we can't blame 508 for people riding unregistered
Correct.
four-wheelers on the road. That's a police matter.
I get them on my road too.
Me too.
That's a Charlton thing, I think.
And I suppose the traffic is nothing too. It was backed all
Again,
the way up
it's-
to North
that-
Sullivan Road. We have some.
The police get paid, there's plenty of details, that this.
Yeah, they're making a lot of
so-
money on these details, so.
Again, not
That's it.
site plan. And
Well,
I,
this whole event happened, all these things happened, trash, defecating, trespassing, buggies on the road, people walking to the parking lot, all that wasn't supposed to happen, all of it did, not a single sighting from the police on anyone.
We can't
I have
say.
nothing to say with the police's vision. I don't,
I would
I don't
be
know.
expecting a fence, something in chain link, and I would be expecting some bushes in that open area. My clearing my side happened before 508, and it's for beef cows, for a pasture.
All right, so I'm done, this conversation, we're just getting
Okay.
way off subject. If, you cleared yours, he cleared
I don't know what it
his,
is.
it's just a matter of dueling neighbors here. I'm not in the.
You tell me 1 to 2,000, and then 10,000 show up 2 weeks later, and it's
I
like
only
nothing.
I only can respond to, when I have the answers, when I respond, if the answer changes, then the answer changes. I only know what I know.
Okay, now what about noise? You want to revisit that a little bit?
No,
No, we're,
No, okay.
Anybody else?
Amy Stanley, Sydney Circle. I'm going to see if you guys can add this into the records. I emailed before your last hearing and asked a bunch of questions. So comments in red are my response, and I had a couple more questions, but many of those are already answered tonight. Okay, so don't worry about that. I just wanted to enter it into record. And then I believe somebody did respond, he gave me all the answers.
Was
One
that
question that I'm.
Jane did some, and I did some.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, somebody did, forgot to email me back. One big question I have is, what are the set hours of operation? The days, the seasons, the hours?
Russ, can you please answer that for us?
I believe is it 8 days or on the plan?
Is it in the plan?
It's on the plan, I can't remember exactly where, but it is on the plan.
So the planning board in the site plan approval, they issued August 13, 2015, item 27, incorporated the schedule of operations as April 1st to October 31st, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The planning board may incorporate these conditions of August 13 site plan approval by reference, new or change as they see fit. The planning board must put reasonable conditions on the amended site plan approval. What I'd strongly like to recommend is the planning board needs to adopt these scheduled hours of operation, which was April 1st to October 31st, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Considering they want to do snowmobiling, I'm guessing that they're opening it up year-round.
So that has changed.
That is
So these
changed.
are the events really between April 1 and October, the big Mutter events, and then the really the lower impact activities would be, I'm suspecting that there won't be gigantic Mutter races or motocross events in the middle of December.
No, the ground's frozen.
So the October through April is primarily snowmobiling. Is there any, cross-country skiing and things like that? It just, I think the weather dictates
Absolutely,
that.
the activities.
What do we have for the hours of operation that we have? We have 8 to 8.
I haven't found it yet on the plan.
It's in the order of conditions, it's one of the conditions.
Okay, but not the
Item
other
number
things.
27.
Then it's not in the plans?
I believe there is a note on the plans.
But I know that in the conditions, we had that in the original set, so we'll make sure that that's in there. And these are really the high impact ones, because you won't notice probably snowmobilers or cross-country skiers.
Can we consider limiting to daylight hours only during the seasons when it starts before 8 p.m.? So the September, October, April, May.
I believe 8 to 8 was in the conditions.
8 to 8 was in the condition.
You can't alter that now.
You can't alter that.
8 to 8 was the agreed upon the council.
So they won't have overnight events like we, that started at about the time, but, so the hours are 8 to 8.
There's no campground right now or anything like that, so right now,
Not at this time.
and if there is, it'll come back in front of us if they're gonna add, correct, campground? If
Well,
they were gonna
campground's
add-
actually by rights.
By
By
right,
rights,
so
yeah,
that would be a
that's by
current
rights. That doesn't
thing.
come back to
That's
us.
not an event, that's a by right, so
Well,
it's
that's,
correct.
that's not part
That
of
would be
the
additional site
plan,
plan
it's not a
approval.
recreational facility
No.
that's gainful profit, so there is no camping as part of this plan.
There's no camping,
That
even though
was-
it's an allowed
There's
right
no
in it?
campground as part of this plan.
That was part of the.
But it's a by right of the zone, isn't
It's a
it?
by right use in that zone.
It is, correct.
So they don't need
Is
to
it?
come to
Let me-
us.
Yeah.
Correct.
It is.
It would just be
Okay.
it would be a,
It's a Board of Health.
Yes.
so Andy, the answer to the question is there will not be overnights, and if there is, if it turns into a campground, then it will be brought to the, Board of Health and.
Unless it was covered under a special permit by the board of selectmen, that could be another scenario.
So they changed it, so it's not April to October.
Correct.
It's the whole year. That's a bit confusing, because that was part of the agreement, the approval. You guys answered a lot of the questions for noise. I had a question, number 2 that I have on my list there. It says, what is the maximum number of vehicles allowed? What I wanted to know was, I meant to ask how many vehicles allowed in an event? 100 bear flags,
I don't,
is there anything?
is that in the
We can't-
agreement? I don't think, I think that is the police
Yes.
and whatever,
Right.
Well, it's limited by parking, but there could be turnover during the day, depending on how long the event lasts.
Are they gonna have that stationary area where they're supposed to test all the vehicles that go in on the track? Is that on the plan there?
That was part of the testing for the mock race.
The sound test required that as the first step of the testing. It's not something to continue indefinitely.
But I believe it was,
It was misconstrued as by some public opinion to be a permanent fixture, along with continuous testing. And that wasn't the case per the decision.
and in the
Right.
signed agreement,
Correct.
that isn't in the signed agreement. I mean, now, everything's modified due to the new signed agreement.
Correct.
So we're kind of in a little bit of a different situation, if that makes sense.
so I was just, so they don't have to have that sound booth that was required. So everything that was on that isn't quite required anymore.
It was never a condition either on the,
I don't recall.
I don't remember
think so.
that ever being part of it.
As long as they stay under the
Exactly.
noise.
Yeah, stay under the noise,
Okay.
like 10 decibels.
Magic number.
So I think you answered all my questions. And I gave you a copy.
Yes, we have it
So
on.
those are all the questions I had asked and the responses that you had given me back. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a few questions?
And
What is the
name-
ambient,
name-
my name is Dawn Petnelli, I live on 293 North Sturbridge Road. Please tell me, with the sound, you said that the sound passed, it didn't actually, it was a farce. What is the ambient noise level? Because you can't go 10 decibels above it. What is the ambient noise level? Tell me.
I don't
I
know.
have that
I don't
report,
think
it
this
is not
board
written
knows
in there.
because it's not,
If I could address that.
So you have to, I think this has to be in the order of conditions. What is the ambient sound level?
That's
So
the,
then we
we're not
know.
sound
State
engineers,
correct.
we're not sound engineers, and this, it was determined by the engineering.
No, it wasn't. It's not in their report. We could send you copies of the report. It's never been listed. What is
It
it?
is,
Tell me.
it's different for every neighborhood.
So
because
tell us,
there's-
I want to see a map with all those noise
You
levels.
can most certainly get that map. I believe it's actually still available online even. And it's part of the information that was submitted to the board by our sound consultants. It was reviewed by the town's sound consultant. And background ambient was established for every
It's
neighborhood.
not.
whether
It's not.
whether
I'll
it's-
find you my form.
I don't interrupt you, and I appreciate that you would allow me the same respect. Is that too much? I'm trying to answer
No,
your
go on,
question.
go on, go on.
So, every neighborhood, Sydney Circle, has a certain level. Sullivan Road has a certain level. Even over in Sturbridge, right on the line, has a certain level. There's about, I think there's 8 or 10 different locations. North Sturbridge might be one. I can't remember the specific locations offhand, but there's a map, and it shows the little block, and it shows all the levels. And if you guys can't locate it, most certainly go get a copy of that. So, and that's the key that Jim Philbrook would use to determine the 10 dB over.
That was done by the town son, or the town engineer.
It was done by, Russell's engineer did it, and then
Yes.
and then our engineer reviewed it
Okay.
to determine if the calculations were correct.
Because in the auditorium, many years ago, there was a huge discussion about it, and both of the sound engineers had their maps out, and we got to see on each one.
We did the study twice. Once was done in the winter time, and everyone said, oh, the snow's affecting it, and we need to redo it. So we redid it again in the spring, and redetermined the numbers, so.
Thank you.
And also, can we see a copy of the settlement? Is it on the website?
I believe it's on the town of Charlton website, or
Yeah.
it was at one point. That's where I saw it.
And is there going to be a new order of conditions that we can review?
We can
We don't
see
order
it
conditions.
via-
There'll be a decision, but we don't normally put it on the website. But you can get a copy of it.
But it's a public information.
All right, thank you.
Is there any more questions? I'd like to close this. All
I
right, so,
just have one other question, if I may. We still have the restriction for not using Lad Road only for emergency access. So that will remain, I believe, right, unless you intend to ever improve Von Sawmill Road to get a connection.
Well, I
out.
believe the way it was written in the decision was that, and it's not written in the decision, or it's not written in the settlement agreement?
Correct.
It's on the plan, I believe.
Well, on the plan, it specifically says emergency exit.
Yes, right.
There's no emergency exit only, and that was always the issue. What we had said during the planning board public hearings was, we've always used that road. We have other businesses that use that road. It's very, very difficult to be able to determine what traffic is coming from where. And if a car comes down on Sawmill Road onto Lad Road, which is not even in Charlton, someone can say, hey, that's coming from 508. And maybe it's coming from one of the other businesses. This was part of the original discussion. The only way emergency exit got written on the plans was a neighbor from Sturbridge questioned whether or not the road was able to support emergency vehicles coming onto Von Sawmill Road from the direction of Lad Road. Therefore, your board asked Mike Andre from Graves to go out and review whether or not that road could handle emergency traffic and emergency vehicles. At that point in time, he said, fine, you can use it as an emergency exit. At that point in time, emergency exit was written on the plan. There was never a discussion of you can't use Lad Road. And in fact, at many a meeting, I have discussed it with everyone. I discussed it with both the chiefs of police, being Sturbridge and Charlton. And I said, if anyone can present the document to me today that says, here's a document that says you can't use Lad Road, these reasons stated on here, I won't use it. And again, at this point in time, I would challenge your board, the same exact thing. A document that says you can't use Lad Road because of X. And that's where the emergency exit discussion comes from. Now,
From the very
naturally,
beginning, we've never allowed the use of that road. So, we've gotten this far. Do we wanna go any further? Let's keep it emergency. If somebody goes down that road, it's not, that's not 508, it's not your fault. It is what it is, but it's still.
So, emergency access, emergency exit, or only for emergency vehicles?
It says emergency exit. So if there's an emergency, then
Well, I think if there's an emergency, you can use any road you want. But for emergency vehicle use only, I think is the
That's
way it should be
different than-
worded than emergency use. If it's an emergency, please use it.
well, I think
But-
part of the discussion is also what came into, as of late, the use of Lad Road on event days. And that was the point of contention because of the amount of traffic going out now. Here again, we have the same situation. Do we run 1,000 people by 2 houses on Lad Road? Or do we run 1,000 people by 200 houses on Brookfield Road? And that was part of why it makes sense to use Lad Road. But we always maintained our right to use Lad Road and Bond Sawmill Road because there's other properties off of there. And we can't be getting involved in that. He said, she said, that car came from here, that car came from there. So on event days, we said, we won't use it, just to avoid confusion and avoid the problems coming to the town hall. We said, we'll just solve the problem, we won't use it. And that's what we did for the past couple events. But again, you go down that same old situation of, we don't wanna be nice and give up our rights, because that's a town road. And
Well,
why can't we
actually,
use
it's
it?
not a town road, that was discontinued, Bond Sawmill Road.
Bond Sawmill Road
Was
has
discontinued.
never been discontinued. Lad Road, the portion of Lad Road that goes from Lad Road to Bond Sawmill Road in Sturbridge has been discontinued.
Well,
You're
there's
absolutely
actually,
correct with that.
we have the town meeting record from 1950-something that said Bond Sawmill Road was discontinued in Charlton.
I would love to see a copy of that, because I have a copy of the town meeting from the 70s, where Bond Sawmill Road discontinuation was on the agenda. It was brought before the town, and it was postponed indefinitely because they didn't have the correct information to follow through with the warrant article. So,
do we want
Yeah, I have a
to
copy of that.
postpone this thing again and research that, or do we want to keep it emergency use only and get this approved and done with?
What I would do is approve it as such tonight, pending, unless we get new information on Bond Sawmill Road. If he's right and we're wrong, then we can revisit that portion of it. But let's get this moving. I mean,
We've looked at this, we've reviewed these
Correct.
plans,
It's
we've
been years.
kept it emergency use. I mean, to change something like that, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if our chief of police or our offices think that there is some sort of a risk by not dividing up traffic and using that road,
Can we
I
say?
feel more comfortable with that, but I don't want to change something that we've been, for years, it's been on the plan to change something like that now. It kind of, I don't know, what is the?
So the wording, I just question the wording of emergency use only, what does that mean? So if it's stated you can't use it for vehicle traffic on event days, for event traffic, only to be used for emergency vehicle traffic on event days, something like that?
It's not
Would make
defined,
sense?
it's not defined like that.
And if we defined it like that, for emergency vehicle traffic on event days only, that would keep the traffic
Yes.
off that road, and it would still allow them to
Yes,
use
I would agree.
non-event days to
Exactly.
exit and enter the property.
and for the safety, if they're having 10,000 people and Brookfield is so backed up, I think for the safety of the people at the event, it would be good to allow that.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think
Yeah, he
you're
said
just-
exactly. He said
you're
what
opening
he
the
said.
door to-
I-
as-
I'm agreeing
I
with
think
you
they're
on that.
reasonable.
Yes. To a point.
I'm fine with the reasonable approach of on event days, that's
Emergency vehicles
reasonable
only on
because-
Yes,
event
that's
days.
what I mean.
The main issue is there are addresses on Sawmill Road.
Yes.
And you can't say that those don't exist. I mean, we have a house on Sawmill Road, they're in on Sawmill Road. It's on the taxes, it's house, my business partner lives there. So to say you can't use those roads, that's a tough situation. On event days, fine, we won't send the traffic that way. That's taking care of what the neighbor was concerned about.
Bill,
We
what do you
leave
think
it
about
at
this?
You know, as far as I know, it's a private road, so I'm not sure we want to encourage the public.
That's what I'm
to use
saying,
that
for
road.
emergency vehicles on event
I
days
think
only,
that's-
that would keep the traffic off of that
I
road.
would agree with
Yeah. I think that's okay.
that. You wanna make a motion then, Bob?
We can't, it's not,
can't.
yet.
Oh, that's right.
Next week.
Well, do we need motions for all these, or?
Well, I think
we
that
just
would be a
discuss?
a condition,
Well,
right?
you know,
That would
Part
be a
of the-
condition?
Yes, if you're.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
That on
Favor?
event days only, it's emergency vehicles only.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I can get you the date and information on it, I do have it.
Yeah.
I have it, I can email it to you.
I think I have it too, but
Okay.
I'll look for it again.
I'm Warren Cisco from Charlton, Mass, anyone that doesn't know that by now. Can you show me what on Sawmill Road starts and stops on this map?
No.
No?
It's not showing on here, is it?
Here's Lag Road, and then on Sawmill comes
This right here
in.
is on Sawmill Road. On Sawmill Road goes right here, comes right down, on mutual property line right here. Goes all the way down here, comes back around.
On Sawmill Road touches my property right there, and it's a town road.
Right here. Right there. You know where the big rock is?
I know the big piece of ledge is, yeah.
No, the big rock, real rock.
So this is the only piece of property that you're really talking about is
There's a house,
here.
we have a house
Yeah,
right here.
yeah.
That's 30 on Sawmill Road.
This is on Sawmill Road right here, touching my corner right here.
It moves right out.
That's not, you say it's a town road, so I have frontage on a town road.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the site plan as written. With that restriction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Wonderful.
So I'm gonna get you again somehow. Thank you for your time. Thank you guys very much. You give it to the solar farms, but I can't even get a fence for that. Crossing my
It's
property.
the state regulation. We don't have much control over this stuff.
We have one, thanks, John, one extension.
Just put that section from here to here. But that's not.
We're always
I have an extension request. Dear Jane, per our conversation, OMA Group LLC is asking for an extension from the planning board for the storage facility located at 157 Worcester Road, Charlton, Mass. The extension request is to, they're asking for an extension to July 14th, 2019. Do I have a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Abstain.
So we have 3-2-3-0-1 vote.
Yep, that'll go right back.
Who voted against?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, they abstained. They don't do it. Sorry.
I was thinking about that.
Don't make the
Dear Charlton Planning Board, please withdraw the application for a car lot on 21 Worcester Road. This is for Pegasus Motors. They had asked to increase the size of their property, and they're just asking to withdraw the application.
A couple of months ago, you had approved that
Yes.
car lot.
And now they don't wanna do it?
Apparently, it's been too expensive for the applicant to continue.
So it goes away.
Yes.
This
So
is
you-
across from.
If you so approve, you would rescind
And the
that.
diner.
The diner, okay,
The diner.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
The Pegasus, yeah.
Blue Moon Cafe?
They put the
Yes,
grindings
exactly.
down and everything?
Mm.
What's that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's that?
They put the asphalt regrinds down and everything.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm surprised. That's too bad.
So do we have to vote to accept the withdrawal?
Yes.
Do I
So
have
Make
a
a second.
Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do you want to mention this at all about this general bylaw
Okay.
to the board?
I think everybody- So, general planning board discussion. We have, coming up on the 18th, an open public hearing. Because of a petition to, I'll read the Article 2, citizens petition prohibiting non-medical marijuana, general bylaw to see if the town will vote to amend the town general bylaw by adding a new chapter and section that would provide as follows, and further to amend the table of contents to add said chapter and section. The issue with this is that I don't think we can change a general bylaw. I think we can do only the zoning.
Well, yeah, the planning board doesn't have jurisdiction on general bylaws. And I'm not sure exactly, what this is intended to accomplish, because we have a zoning bylaw in place. There's an article to rescind that bylaw that was passed by town meeting, and this is just a general bylaw that prohibits marijuana establishments. But I'm not sure what effect it would have.
In the general, I don't know if that goes, that's more of a selectmen's.
Well, it's a simple majority vote at town meeting, then if it's passed, it becomes a town bylaw, but I don't know what effect it would have.
Now, if we're prohibiting marijuana, non-medical
Non-medical.
marijuana, okay.
Well, no, medical. Is that
I see.
legal with the new
I was
laws,
just
or
gonna ask
is
that.
it
I don't
have to
think
be
it is,
zoned?
but
I think that's
I
been ruled
think that the
before.
attorney will have to look at the overall general of restriction. We just have to do a little more research on this, but this is what was submitted.
Yeah, I don't think the planning board needs to be
There is,
concerned about it.
there is two articles. There's, the first article is to rescind. So coming up for our meeting next week, I just wanted everybody to kind of to do their research, and so I wanted to just go over a couple of things, to be as prepared as possible for next week. We want to be able to answer a lot of questions and know what.
This is coming before us next week?
So next
Planning
week,
board.
yeah, so coming in.
For a general
No.
bylaw?
No.
Okay.
What's coming before you is the public hearing on the zoning amendment to rescind
Okay.
the bylaw that was
bylaw.
adopted at town
Okay.
meeting.
So,
But if we do that, can't marijuana go anywhere?
possibly, but, so we want to get all the facts straight, and I did take a couple days off from work to dive into this stuff very deep. And so and thank you, Jane, for doing so much work and digging out old things for me constantly. Poor Jane, I think she's sick of seeing my face. I dug up all the different versions of the zoning change that we were going through. And I was actually pretty surprised at the changes from the first time we looked at it, the 9th to the 10th, all the way to the 18th. There are significant changes. Now, do I have a packet with these? That I can give everybody. Yeah. So, this is the final one.
That's the final one.
We can pass this out.
I'll get it, I'll go before.
All right. So, what I have
That's final.
is, and I have the first version dated the 9th. And what it pretty much says is, it's what I honestly thought we were approving at the town meeting. So it says, I'm just gonna go over some of the basics. You guys can read up on this, and I can give you everybody copies. So the first version says, the planning board shall not approve a special permit for more than 3 marijuana establishments, period. And so what that did is, what I believed we were doing at the town meeting, was that we limited the total amount of establishments. That means retail, or medical, or cultivator, or shipping, or every definition, and there's a huge definition on what a marijuana establishment is in here.
And didn't town meeting then reduce it to 2?
We reduced it to 2.
I thought
So
so.
I thought, at the end of the town meeting, we did what my goal was as the chair, and what I thought our board's goal was to say, all right, we have the max, the state says we have to do a percentage of liquor licenses, and we're gonna allow the minimum and keep it, because of the interpretation of this bylaw, I thought we were doing the right thing. So, now I'm going at all the different versions. So, and then I go to version 2, and it changes from that 3 total. And I'm talking before we went to town meeting, so 3 total. It changes now on the next date, which is the 10th on here, that we went to 3 retail, and then it looks like unlimited cultivating. And then we added also that a marijuana indoor cultivator is allowed on a parcel of 20 acres. We added that. It didn't have anything here, and then we just added that, and so there's a small change. We added that the marijuana cultivation facility should be set back 100 feet from a property line, and we added that there needs to be 1,000 feet of space between any other marijuana facility or adult type use facilities. And then we get to the third one, and it changes now to 3 medical, and then 3 retail, making 6. So originally, remember, we said 3. So now we're at 6, and then we go to unlimited cultivating by special permit. So pretty much anybody who is in an agricultural zoned area in Charlton, they have 10 acres and the ability to get a permit.
As long as they have 10 acres.
And then it changed to 10 acres on this one. I have to say that I
the first one we
watch
had was
every
20.
single one of our planning board meetings, and I do talk about critiquing yourself in every word that you say, but we never discussed any of this.
I was just gonna say that, I don't ever recall stating.
And believe me, I watched every single meeting multiple times, so here's me, I'm going, all my CCD moms, because I teach CCD, and my soccer moms and my softball moms, I'm going, because we're gonna protect the town, everybody show up for a town meeting. And I'm like, this is good for our town. But now, I'm wrong. I think what we did, is it looks like we opened up our town to, now 4, but when we were pushing this, 6 selling places.
Correct.
And unlimited growing places. This is what we have now.
Now, how did town meeting, when they said then 2, So everyone voted, and they said, okay, we're gonna cap it to, period, does our 10-acre plus circumvent that?
Going back to the town meeting,
Yes.
I wonder, and this is my odd interpretation, remember during the wording, it says let's cap it at 2.
Right.
When we capped it at 2, did we cap retail and medical, or did we cap them in total? Because this is the one thing that might have
How
fixed
was it
everything.
written? Yeah.
Because
It says
The
in
town meeting.
section B, section 5.20,
Which is just,
B and C,
Right.
by replacing the words 3 with the words 2.
So
So
if
it's
we,
retail.
but I don't,
C.
but I don't,
Yeah.
if you listen when Karen speaks at town meeting, she is under the impression,
Correct.
and all of us are under the impression that we just said 2 total
Total.
marijuana
Right.
facilities and
Period,
storage.
period, and yes.
And I know we have all the legal stuff that get involved and maybe, but I think the true heart of this was missed. It was
Yes.
missed by our board.
Yes.
I think we had a lot of things going on. We had, we were fighting for the salary for the planning board. And again, my mission going into that meeting was to get our salary back because we need a planner.
Correct.
We had all the 508 stuff going on. We had multiple, we were meeting till 11 o'clock at night. We're adding more meetings. We're, so.
lost the chairman.
Lost the chairman in the middle
Right,
of
and our
that.
chairman, right, resigned, and you guys got lucky me. So,
But no, I agree, Patsy. I don't recall ever saying 10 acres plus, you can grow whatever you want, and then we're gonna go 3 plus 3, 2 plus 2. We thought we were saying 2 and doing right by the town.
I thought 3 in total.
Correct.
Because we had to, and then after the fact, we found, I had found out that we were rounding up to 3,
Correct.
let's go with 2.
Right.
So I made it well known to everybody that, we
Correct.
could go to 2, so that was changed. And the heart of it was misunderstood.
I agree.
We were incorrect. Now,
What do we do now?
That's
How-
because though, and I'll go along with what everybody else here feels, and I believe at the town meeting, I even asked you.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
And the only thing I ever saw was the original one marked draft that was given to the planning board. This one, this one, this one, and then the final one. I never saw any of those. So when we went into town, although I will say in the warrant, the one that is marked annual town meeting, that's what it did appear
Okay.
in the warrant, but even that was different. That shows the difference between the 20 acres down to the 10 acres, and
We'll look that up.
that even added another part to here, the third party marijuana
right,
transporter.
I just don't wanna look like,
A lot of got thrown in there that
Correct.
we never saw.
No.
It didn't stem, when you kept saying we, it wasn't the planning board that made all these
A lot of those
changes.
changes were made by council, town council, to make
Okay.
sure that we conform to the state law.
it seems as though, and do I wanna say this out loud? I feel like we paved the way for VGG to come in, but, and I can say it wasn't intentional at all, because that's the last thing, I don't wanna
Yeah,
pave the way for anybody, I
don't
want to
think-
do
I don't think
everything.
that's the case at all. I think VGG was within the guidelines of our original, if you look at the original plan, VGG would have
They were a
fallen
second,
underneath that, underneath
right.
the draft. They would have been the second,
And they would've
They had
blocked
plenty of
it off.
acreage,
Yeah,
they had
exactly.
plenty of things, so I don't agree that these changes help them.
Well, I don't know,
It's
so
gonna
the-
help everybody else.
The
After that.
change that we, can now allow, the state law says that they need to be 1,000 feet apart. Each 100,000 acre permit has to be 1,000.
Yep.
We added that, because knowing that how big they are, somehow we added that we could, by special permit, allow them to be closer. That's a little, that's what really threw me over the top when I was reading this. I said, really? To say.
Now, are you talking about different facilities, or are you talking about the greenhouse?
No, because each state permit needs, every 100,000 square feet requires its own individual permit. And on the last
Okay.
version, we added, unless a special, so marijuana establishments shall be a minimum of 1,000 feet from an adult use specified in blah, 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 or other marijuana establishment. Unless a special, and then we added on the last version, unless a special permit has been granted to allow the collocation of the 2 types of marijuana establishments at a single location. So by doing that, we said, okay, instead of, I mean, I guess when you're thinking about it, should they do 100,000 square foot pods, or they should put it together? But it kind of allows a huge facility to come in versus it's much cheaper to just do a small 100,000 square foot facility. So, this is what I want you guys to go home and study and kind of figure out what kind of happened. I just wanted to flag what I've been doing my research on. Number two, I've been calling everybody for information, and I actually called a grower, a facility that builds marijuana growing containers in Colorado. Hi, I'm from Pelton, Massachusetts. And just because I've been doing so much research, and I'm trying to understand our original zoning and how it works. And I think the reason why we're open to everything, why our original translation of why we've opened our town, we're unprotected, is the definition of a greenhouse in our bylaw. And my job is not to question our ZEO's interpretation of any bylaw, and as far as this letter says that he worked on that interpretation with attorneys. So, however, when I look at the bylaw, it looks like we allow greenhouses in agricultural areas.
Makes sense.
But there's a clear definition of a greenhouse is much different than a warehouse. And I said, what's different? Is there a difference between if I grow something in a warehouse, does it make it a greenhouse? And they said, absolutely not, because a greenhouse uses natural light, and a warehouse is insulated like crazily, so they have complete control of the environment.
But, and then under the new greenhouses, under the new fancy, if you will, modern day greenhouses, aren't they insulated? Because yes, they are greenhouses.
Yes, they're even a regular insulated, the main change is the use of natural sunlight versus LED or halide lamps.
What about solar? Because they said they're going to go buy solar.
It
That's
doesn't,
natural
the
solar.
definition,
Solar to generate electricity. or-
if you use solar to generate electricity to power your warehouse, it doesn't change the definition to a greenhouse.
So I guess my question becomes, and I'm not arguing, it's a discussion, is it possible that that definition is older than the new versions of the greenhouses? Because
This was a call made a couple of days ago too. I mean, so I'm just, and again, this is just me doing I'm an auditor by real life, and now I'm going, I want to know everything I know to understand why our town is doing what we're doing, and
I want to make sure we're
all
right.
these details. And I definitely want to make sure we're right and we know all the facts, and whatever decision is made, that all the facts are out there and as transparent as possible. So that's another fact. I have a list of local towns that have voted the same way we voted, and they all currently have a moratorium. Now, this is Grafton, Dudley, East Brookfield, West Boylston, New Braintree, Sturbridge, Douglas, Webster, Spencer, Northbridge, Paxton, Millbury, Sutton, and even Freetown, who has a signed project, like a signed agreement with VGG, passed a moratorium too. Just interesting facts, just to think about what we're doing. Another interesting fact that I decided that I was going to read the master plan, because so much time on my hands.
So remember, VGG came in before the town meeting, and we were led to believe that the agreement had already been signed with VGG at that point.
Right, there's a lot of.
It was agreed on by that point, but it was never signed.
So the master plan says
And I
that
didn't know about that.
85% of our town is zoned agricultural. It makes sense, because when I was a kid, there was cows everywhere. But it also says that of that, only less than, and this is 2008, so less than 7% of that agricultural land is actually used for agricultural. They're all houses.
Correct.
So we, knowing this fact now, we've allowed people to grow marijuana in pretty much residential areas in our town, because even though we have 85% agricultural, only back in 2008, less than 7% was actually being used as farms. So pretty much we're all houses. We're houses everywhere.
It's houses with a lot of land is what it is.
With chunks of land. So, I mean, this is a discussion for another day, as we really need to start looking at, like, these percentages are we need to probably rezone some of these areas to protect them because they're residential and
But
not.
I guess, one question I have is, we're talking about cultivation of marijuana. Why is that different than growing other kinds of crops? If this
Because
was-
defined by-
If this was corn or tomatoes.
Because it was
it's
defined by the
still-
state that way.
But it's still cultivation and it's still going to happen in greenhouses.
Correct.
So from a land use perspective, which is what zoning is all about, are the impacts greater from cultivating marijuana in greenhouses than cultivating corn or some other crop in greenhouses?
Well, for some reason, the state thinks
A
so.
greenhouse or manufacturing facility, if you look at the plans for that, I question whether it is a greenhouse. It's a steel building, it's fully enclosed, it has commercial lights. It's more of a warehouse or commercial building
Right,
than it is.
right, so if
So
they-
a farm is, you've got a country road, you've got maybe a little parking lot for farm equipment, you're bringing your stuff to the market, or you've got a farm stand, people are
Sure.
coming to you. It isn't a big, huge building with asphalt parking, lighting, everything else that goes along with a big manufacturing facility. It really is, other than what's inside of it, it's a manufacturing facility.
So, and the state clearly defines marijuana is not a crop. I mean, if you can understand my
Well, that's-
interpretation.
it's-
So marijuana is
it's a
not
specific-
considered.
It's not
agriculture.
Is not considered an agricultural crop.
No, that
Hemp,
is-
hemp is, but marijuana isn't, and there's a difference between, because you don't get high on hemp.
Can I make a distinction here? The state law where this is written is in the zoning act. And in section 3, it provides exemptions from regulation for certain kinds of activities. So by inserting this language that marijuana is not considered agriculture, it's for purposes of the zoning exemption. Obviously, it's still cultivation, it's still agriculture, you're still growing a crop, but it doesn't enjoy that broad protection that other kinds of agriculture has. So it's still agriculture, but it's just not agriculture for purposes of the zoning exemption.
And I assume they're doing that just to protect the towns.
Yeah, so it's giving the towns control over how to regulate cultivation of marijuana, because if that language wasn't there, then it would be an exempt use and can go anywhere,
So, I'm passing out this, I know some of you guys will have it. This is the handful, the green ones, where are the big green on the bottom there? These are the places, these are the towns in Massachusetts that are allowing marijuana. And honestly, when I read their bylaws, when I went in there to see what they're doing right now, they pretty much only allow it in industrial. So I thought it was interesting, there's so few, and the ones that are doing it, they're allowing it industrial. And why we went ahead and said, let's throw it in agricultural, maybe because we didn't want to limit our farmers, but then, and now when I'm thinking back, I mean, because, if our farmers wanted to honestly make a living off of growing marijuana, we shouldn't have a problem with it, right? Because we're Charlton. But then it isn't really about the farmers. We don't really have many farmers left in our town. I can't understand why we went ahead and said, go ahead, grow it in agricultural when no one else is.
I think one of the reasons, just recalling from the discussion, was there's so many parcels in the agricultural zone that are that large, that many, I mean, look at the applicant, which was just before us, were they 500 acres?
Right.
Yeah, but 10 acres isn't that large.
No, that's why I
I
think
think-
that's where
That
Pat was
10
getting
acres
to the
is-
point where that number wasn't what we discussed.
I don't get why it
When we
got
had
to
our
10.
public hearing on the issue before the town meeting.
So,
Actually, kind of feels like one of our joint meetings we had.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Yeah.
I have one question. You refer to warehouse and you refer to greenhouses. Okay, a greenhouse, would that have like dirt floor?
the definition, the big difference between a greenhouse and a warehouse, and again, this is me just asking questions.
And you're
maybe-
talking to the people who come out and
who
actually build these things.
And so you can go to them and say, I wanna do a greenhouse style, which is under the sun. You pretty
Okay.
much, I mean, there's very, very high-tech greenhouses, they're
Mhm.
all computerized.
Yes.
I can be a dealer now, I'm just saying, I know so much about it. So they're all, like, there's computers inside and like there's sensors to make sure the heat and the CO2, like, they're like super high-tech. The problem is you're depending on the weather. So it really says if you get a couple of cloudy days, now you have to kind of regulate with your your different lights, and you
Correct.
always, it's more like, it's more volatile when it comes to like, if you wanna have the perfect growing. Now in a warehouse, it's completely insulated. You have computers that are just making the CO2 levels perfect though.
Are these like growing on tables?
So it's all different growing methods. There's all sorts of, I should know all this, man. There's, I know the big thing is hydroponics
I
now.
was just gonna bring
but
that
yeah,
up
there
because
are,
they're
they're
growing
growing
warehouses.
racks. They're at like the perfect level of where they should be, like the length, the height of them. And then they have the lights coming down from the ceiling, or some of them are in dirt, some of them are in water, some of them, and there's all different types of dirt and all different types of water methods to make it all work. But the main difference between a greenhouse and a warehouse is the use of natural sun through like the glass, through the panels that they have on it.
So, question on that, so as a planning board, can we require that style be used on this property? That we're
Or
talking
any
about? Or any
property.
property, that only natural light greenhouses can be used?
Well, when
We
they
will
said-
not allow a steel structure on an agriculture building. If it's for agriculture or for marijuana, it has to be a natural light greenhouse.
Is that more of
You have a
Ezekiel?
special permit power, so you can condition whatever you think. is
Plus, at this point, they have to be 1,000 feet apart, so you're limiting what they can do.
appropriate. Not individual greenhouses, if there's more than one greenhouse.
If there's more than one
On
greenhouse,
the property, but
So you can have
if there's more than one
100,000
license,
square
each
feet.
facility has to be 1,000 feet apart unless we give them special approval, which we don't need to do that either,
But that did get put into here.
but that is in there.
But we can if we want to, but that's totally up to us if we want to do, I'm not sure if it's in
For the sake of the neighborhood, I think
anybody's
it's-
best interest to have a whole bunch of pods of greenhouses, or if it's, that's something that we would have to, do we want them spread out, so they're touching
that
neighbors
even-
more, or do we want them to have it bigger in the center? But I guess that will be at our board's discretion. So, I know I'm like rambling on, but the point of all this is that we have the town meeting, the special town meeting, to wipe this out. And I think that's very dangerous, looking at the interpretation of the zoning, to have them go, because
That would
this is.
open up a lot.
Me saying a greenhouse versus a warehouse is one thing, and me talking to multiple companies saying that the two different things is one thing, but what our zoning enforcement officer, that he's the one that's interpreting, so I'm not saying, I'm just telling you the facts that I've learned. So I am hoping that we can kind of, during our hearing next week, be able to propose, and you can tell me if this is possible, a new zoning versus wiping it out and having nothing, which absolutely, let's get back to the heart of the matter and say, the whole town voted on 2.
Exactly.
So let's get back to 2.
2, yeah, let's make 2 the
And
number.
let's do what we wanted to do in the.
What we thought we
in
were
the
doing.
Exactly.
first place.
So the planning board, obviously, you can propose zoning amendments whenever you want to, and they go to town meeting. You have a citizen's petition before you, you have to vote yea or nay on that article as written. You can't tweak this proposal, but you can take it under advisement and then come back with something that you think makes sense at a different town meeting. But you have to, town meeting will have to vote on the article as written without changes.
So
So-
if there's a
Without
town
changes.
meeting, there's a town meeting
August
August
1st.
August 1st. Is there
Right.
time for the planning board to put together any new,
Not for this town meeting.
not for this town meeting?
Because I'm worried, we already have this, 4 coming in. What if 10 more come in before we can get to the town meeting? Because I wanna protect this mistake that we made. I believe we made a mistake at this board, so
May I ask for clarification? I'm sorry to interrupt. It's my understanding the warrant has not been opened for this special town meeting, nor has it formally been set by selectmen.
The date has been.
I don't believe that there's been
Tentative, it
any.
hasn't been
Right,
voted
Yes,
on.
nothing's
That's
been
not
official,
correct.
it's
We've
still
been
tentative.
declaring-
Correct.
It's, I believe they're opening it Tuesday night, and we'll close it that same evening.
Next
And I
week?
believe it's the intent
first.
to have it on August 1st.
Okay, because I understand that there's other possible warrant articles coming along, so if the planning board wants to jump one on there,
Well, we wouldn't have time to hold a public hearing.
okay.
How long do we need to hold a public hearing for?
Well, you need to advertise it,
How long?
like a regular hearing, so we would need, you have to write the article.
Mhm.
you know.
We could make that happen
You
if
have
we need to.
have a meeting or two to review it, and then you need to advertise it within, advertise it twice, 14 days at least in advance of the hearing. And then you have to make a recommendation. If you don't make a recommendation, town meeting has to wait 21 days. So you really should give yourself enough time to allow for that. So you're really talking about 6 weeks to make the process work.
So,
This is the 11th.
this is the 11th.
October 1st.
And if, how flexible is that town meeting date?
Well, citizens can call a special town meeting, which has been done for this particular article. They needed 200 signatures.
They have
in order
45
call a
days to
special
do
town
it.
meeting.
Yeah, I thought that they were under a time limit of when the meeting had to be held.
For a citizen's petition, a special town meeting, selectmen have to hold it within 45 days.
Of being requested to hold one.
Yeah.
Can that be tweaked to get us into that one?
No,
No?
They have to have it within 45
Well, that's
days.
just a copy, right?
because I
That's not what we
believe
actually
that
submitted.
the first is the farthest out it
I
can
think,
go.
I think that's correct.
That's what was my understanding.
That's
May
my
I?
understanding.
Correct.
Yeah.
August 3rd
Do
is
you
the
know-
deadline for 45 days.
Yeah, August 3rd. So I think that's what I chose the
The
first.
first is 2 days ahead of the deadline.
Oh, okay. So we made it by 2 days.
So
That's
the town will probably have another special town meeting in the fall.
I don't wanna wait, I'm afraid that if we wait till the fall, we're gonna get 19 of these, because every marijuana growing company in the state is saying, look at Charlton's just welcome us in. And honestly, right now, if they're coming to us and we don't, even though we have a lot of discretion, we can't say no, we can't say hold off unless
The one point is, though, it doesn't come to us first.
it goes to the selectmen.
I mean, we don't know what's going, we didn't know what was going on with this one. I mean, that's a whole nother
So there could
thing
be other
that we
warrant
have no
articles.
control over.
I know.
You wanna let some of these guys?
Yes, so chime in, yeah, I'm.
Gerard Russell, 63 Old Worcester Road.
This is not really an open up. I mean, you
Well,
can-
Madam Chairman,
not
I
public
would
hearing.
like to just note that zoning prior to the passage of Article 27 did not allow cultivation of marijuana in an agricultural zone.
It didn't allow it at all.
Did not allow it.
It didn't address it, which means.
And if it didn't specifically address it, then it's not allowed.
Well,
Well,
what it
Not
says is it
really.
allows, so I've dug deep into this one. It's because of our interpretation of what it says. So it says you can grow in an indoor greenhouse on the agricultural zoned areas. Now, some towns are interpreting growing horticulture and floriculture. They're not defining, they're saying that doesn't mean that you can automatically do marijuana in it. And in our town, in our interpretation for that bylaw, it's saying that yes, you can. So that's why if you are in an agricultural zoned area, you can put up a greenhouse and grow marijuana in Charlton. It's just because of that interpretation of the bylaw, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, but we have consulted with a zoning attorney. And you know, it goes back to conflicting opinions even from your zoning enforcement officer. If you look at your March 14th meeting, planning board meeting, you had Mr. Meskis indicating to the board that imagine a 50,000 square foot metal warehouse. Now, he referred to greenhouse as a 50,000 square foot metal warehouse. these are structures that do not resemble greenhouses. And that's the interpretation that really is at play here. That definition of warehouse versus greenhouse, I believe the warehouse versus greenhouse definition came into play with the town council, Jonathan Silverstein. Because prior to that, Mr. Meskis was referring to these as warehouses.
And I did watch those meetings multiple times, and that's accurate. And that was what was confusing me, because I was watching it and they weren't allowed. And then all of a sudden they were, and there was no changes, so it was just a matter of the change in interpretation.
Well, I think what you're saying is exactly right. It's an interpretation of town council working with town officials. So that brings me to my next question, Madam Chairman, for the interim town planner. Who made these changes in Article 27 as
In
it
the draft?
evolved? Correct.
I don't know. I have the same question.
So
There were
maybe
a number of
Mr.
town council changes, there were some staff.
Could you tell me who town council is? Was it Mr. Cosgrove or Mr. Silverstein?
Silverstein.
Mr. Silverstein,
Yes, the
working
last
with,
one. With Kurt and I.
with Kurt and yourself?
Yes.
And anyone else in town hall?
Not that I can think of.
Was Robin there?
She wasn't involved in tweaking the bylaw, no.
Did she have any discussion at all in the matter of Article 27 with you and Mr. Meskis?
I don't recall.
Did you have any meetings with Mr. Meskis and Praver and
Over the
Silverstein?
phone, sure.
Over the phone, so you had
Yeah.
conference calls over the phone?
Yes, right.
So 4 of you were involved in the formulation of Article 27?
I don't think they were specifically involving with Robin the zoning bylaw language.
Can you tell us what involvement she
And this
played?
isn't really an open
Yeah.
hearing. The only reason I'm opening this up in planning board's business is to prepare us for next week and to know some of the facts, because I was truly hoping that we could amend this to fix what kind of fell through. And so now we're just kind of figuring out we don't need to do the imposition.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to feel that way, but you did open it up, and I just wanted to.
Things happened, changes were made. I'm not gonna blame anybody. I think I blame myself, because I should have followed the changes. I watched the meetings, and it was kind of, we only saw this twice. I think there was 3 discussions, but we only really saw it twice, and honestly, I'm spoiled, because when Alan was here, he used to go over things to tedious detail. Sometimes we all kind of like, we don't even know that you remove the double period, buddy. But we were kind of spoiled, and now we're just dealing with the change of style and staffing and stuff, and it's, again, blame myself and trying to be able to fix it to prevent us from really just heading down the wrong road here.
Just for the record, I'm not placing blame, I'm trying to get some facts, because there have been very few of them. Thank you.
I just have one question.
I'm sorry.
They come and they go.
Back to that one.
They'll come back.
Yeah. So the bylaw was written on the 22nd of March, right? That's when it came in front of the planning board. Of March, that's
Yes.
when the planning board
The first
started to
discussion-
discuss it.
The first discussion
Yeah,
that we
okay.
was not looking at.
And then it was put
and-
together after that, and then reviewed. But that was the first discussion of
I think we initially
meeting
started
some.
with the use table,
Yeah, yeah.
And-
which staff had sort of filled out, and we
Yep.
ran it by you,
Good.
and then
Yeah.
we got a chance to decide some improvements and
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember, excuse me, through the chair. You said
Yeah.
that the
Yeah,
next
so
meeting they're
those-
going to
those-
bring in a petition,
And then it went on.
and we can't tweak it,
Public hearing, right.
public hearing, and we cannot change it.
That was good.
If we make if the presenters of this, can they make a change?
The changes can be made
They
at the
can,
town
they can
meeting.
change on the floor though, why
The
can't they make a
changes can be
change on the
made at
floor?
town meeting, but they cannot be made prior to that. Once the-
Okay,
once
but
it's
at town
done.
meeting, they can be made,
Yes.
because we've obviously done that.
Town meeting, we
I
can get
mean,
up there
can we-
and it could be modified if
So I think it's
necessary.
But we changed this?
Does anybody know, can citizens,
Okay.
does anybody?
Okay.
I don't think you
That's
can
right,
change
being
the
a citizen's petition.
I think town meeting has to vote up or down as a.
I think you're right.
Can we ask our attorney, can we ask Cosgrove that? Let's ask our attorney, I wanna know that, because that would fix the problem, and if
Right.
not, because
We could work with the
we
people
could
that
work
wrote
with,
the
we
petition.
could work with the, you know, the
At the
very,
town
probably
meeting.
the very large crowd that's going to come next week to
Get some input.
to get some input and come up with something that is, very
Acceptable
reasonable,
for
acceptable for everybody, and instead of killing it and then having,
Nothing.
like when like with the solar moratorium, when we got all of those plans blocking, you know, grandfathering the areas, we're gonna get the same thing with marijuana.
Mhm.
We need to kind of push this to.
So,
I just have
You're coming up.
one simple, Steve Coronas, Old Worcester Road. Does the board, you guys have the ability to put a moratorium in place?
I think we need a town
Town
vote on
meeting.
that.
Does the planning board have the
Not
ability
Can we
to put
do it
a,
by ourselves?
No.
I
It's
do.
town meeting vote.
to put it,
We can propose it, but not to this town meeting, because there's not enough time for us to get a,
Oh, wow.
article together.
it's a thought.
That would've, that's what I was hoping, but it just,
Well, you can certainly try to probably amend something at the town meeting.
I don't know if we can.
You can propose an amendment.
That's what we need to find out, because it's a
That's in
citizen's
this article.
petition, it
We
may
don't
not
know.
be possible.
If it was a regular town meeting like this, yes, you could, but because it's a citizen's petition, we don't know.
I'm pretty
we
sure,
can
but
check.
we'll just verify.
Yeah.
we'll.
And we will
can
have the
can we
answer
get
to
an
that
answer
next week.
Can we get an answer to that tomorrow, though?
Oh, you're not
Because,
gonna be here.
well,
Jamie, tomorrow, that's it.
I'll email them, I'll let you know.
Okay.
just, because if we do know, then we can kind of, we can work, we
Strategize.
can all strategize. I mean, I don't mean like open meeting law
Just say we
strategize,
can't.
but I mean, but we all can do our research to come to the table.
Sorry
and-
about that.
We can all do
No,
our
no,
research to come to the
correct,
table to say, this is what we all want. It's like,
May I, while you're all at the table, so you don't risk violating any open meeting law violations, my experience in town meeting is citizens petitions can be postponed indefinitely from the town meeting floor.
Oh,
But
I don't know why, and I don't know the legal.
Well, that's another
Can
point,
be,
check on that
but
point.
then why have
And then it
that
can then
time?
be
I
postponed
can
indefinitely.
only
Well, that's
offer
not
to you
tweaking
that
the
in my
bylaw.
experience, I have witnessed.
Yep, no, sure.
but that's not
Postpone.
tweaking what the perfect solution would be, number one, a moratorium to give us more time to kind of get our hands around all of this, and do everything, do what we want to do.
But obviously, we also know
But
that-
tweaking it would be, I mean, in reality, to go back to that too, what the
We have
town
to-
actually voted for, the two.
I thought they were voting.
And then as a board, we can, you know, pay a lot of attention to the greenhouse versus the warehouse and the setbacks, and we could do our thing. I just wanna prevent, you know, all of these kind of things.
But
from-
we also know that, according to the building commissioner, that the Charlton Orchards is grandfathered under the pre-existing zoning.
And that's fine,
So no
because
matter what
they
happens
have to put
at
up a
this
greenhouse
They're going
then.
They
forward.
can still.
What's that?
Charlton Orchards is grandfather, so they're going forward, no matter what happens.
They
they're-
submitted,
yeah.
I disagree with that.
well, they submitted a plan, a subdivision plan to the planning board, which gives them protection from any zoning changes once the plan is
I saw that.
So they have-
But
they have-
that was kind of we all kind of know there's nobody in this room really thinks they're gonna put houses up there.
Correct, but the mere fact that they've submitted the plan gives them the protection.
For zoning,
To build
if that's
houses.
an allowed use, and if it is an allowed use.
So they are protected.
Right now
under
They-
the old
So
zoning.
they can technically put up a greenhouse, not a warehouse, and they're gonna be under the purview of of us just making sure that the neighborhood is safe. I mean, our job is to make sure things get.
Correct. Setbacks and whatnot.
Setbacks and making sure that it's done all the way.
That's correct.
Right, and if,
I think when you guys get more into that, because they were talking about a 25 megawatt power plant. That's 4 locomotive engines running 24/7. And that's clearly not allowed in the zoning on any.
I had asked when I talked to that builder about how much power, and they said that it's substantial power, but the benefit, the profits from marijuana covers that huge cost of how, that it's.
And that's where the zoning is gonna be watched very closely, because you're absolutely right, Steve. Everything is going, this is such a unique project, and where the zoning officer, but more so, I'm sure your people, zoning attorney is gonna be watching. I mean, much like 508, they're not doing anything quietly. Everything is going to be watched, everything is going to be done correctly. We just need to fix, so that's happening. We need to fix, make sure that we don't have 12 of these suckers popping up.
Yep. No, I agree,
Right.
I agree. I'm still not
I mean,
that
whatever
bad.
happens on a
happens.
citizen's appeal and all the legal stuff, that's totally out of our, that's not
Yeah.
even up for our discussion. What's up for our discussion is to, I believe, fix what, and
Right.
go back to what at
What we
least
thought
I
we were
thought
voting, yes.
we were voting for, and again, as a butters, you're doing your legal thing to try to deal with your neighborhood. I just don't want the citizens petition to come in to think that they're gonna kill VGG
Correct.
by getting rid of that petition, and now go. So the only control we have right now is 3 retail and 3 medical. With this,
Right.
the only thing we have is that our bylaws say we only can have, four right now in total.
Yeah.
So at least there's control there by killing it, going to the original interpretation. We're now saying, we're gonna stay the same with cultivation, you can put up something anywhere.
10 acres plus,
But-
you're in.
But now we can have medical and retail unlimited down everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me, and with just killing it. And if I thought killing it was gonna
fix it? Yeah.
fix it, I'll
no, it's
invite
not
all
like
my
that.
CCD moms to that meeting too to vote. But I'm scared of what we're gonna open up to, and it's not because of the old threat of they can go anywhere, let's do it, it's because.
It's a 10-acre thing that scares me. I mean, because if you look at that, if you look at the number of parcels in town that have 10+ acres, I mean,
That's every neighborhood in town, that's every residential area.
But I mean, if you have one house with over 10 acres on it, I mean, look at that. Almost all of us can throw a rock and hit a parcel that has that. And there's a lot of money to be made, and these companies are gonna be coming in offering big dollars if you, much like the solar, if you have 10 acres plus, let me put a greenhouse behind you, or whatever we're going to call it, to grow. And that's kinda scary.
I don't think anybody can blame anybody in this room. I think we can all kind of point a finger at anybody on the Board of Selectmen for all of us being here having this conversation, all the way around. They had the ability to pump the brakes twice, and they refused. And now we're here, so.
If I may, Elisa, I think the point that you just made is the perfect reason to rescind Article 27, because it then becomes not just an old Worcester Road issue, it becomes an issue for the entire town.
Right.
That's it right there.
So
We will be having as many cultivation sites as there are solar
Yes.
farms all around town.
Agreed.
So that's fabulous, everybody's gonna get mad, but nothing could be done about it as they're breaking ground for their neighborhood.
Correct.
You know, to
I mean,
open up.
VCG is coming. It's a matter of protecting everybody else.
And that's what, I get the knee-jerk reaction, we just wanna, getting everybody upset, you know, I get you wanna do it, you have a backdoor strategy, but do we really, I mean, it's even more scary. If I lived in that road, I get it, I get how bad that is. But opening it up to everybody and have everybody in an uproar, but we can't do anything about it, we just have to
Well, if you open it up to 10 acres plus, you're gonna have a lot more facilities on Old Worcester Road.
Well, it is already open to 10 acres.
It
That's
is.
what we need to fix.
Okay, but if you rescind.
There isn't acreage, is there? It says allowed in agricultural, the original zoning.
Parcel of 10 acres or more.
10 acres or more.
The original.
The original was.
No.
On the original, it's 5 acres.
It was 20.
On the original, no, on the original bylaw in town that doesn't talk about marijuana, the agricultural zoning,
Okay,
it's
I'm
5
sorry.
acres. So by getting rid of this, anybody with 5 acres can throw up a marijuana greenhouse anywhere in an agricultural zone because of our interpretation of our bylaw, because that's like me and you saying we wanna grow corn in a greenhouse.
Yep.
As long as it's inside and it's in a greenhouse, you can grow it right now, because of our definition
Correct.
of crops and our definition of greenhouses and horticulture.
So if this citizens petition goes through, marijuana is gonna be popping up like solar is, but worse.
I think I have 5 acres, I'm putting it up myself, I mean, look at them. just
Unless
being
there's a
subject.
moratorium, which is like even the Attorney General extended in Massachusetts, extended.
Yeah, that was after the town meeting though.
I mean, we can,
Well, regardless, I mean, but
Yes.
it was still until the end of this year. She extended it until the end of June, just to give towns the opportunity to pump the brakes, get their zoning in line, figure out what they're gonna do what they wanna be when they grow up. We reacted,
it doesn't matter. if
our
it's
board
original,
reacted.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that still wouldn't apply to
Because
BGG at
all
Shelton
of
Orchards
these places
because
all voted yes, and they all have that.
we wouldn't have had that in time. That was done before.
Yeah.
And
This is more about your backyard.
once again, it's an interpretation of the zoning or the bylaws at the time. Not
Two of them, that's open for discussion, but still, there were two different interpretations, same project.
So all
Okay,
those
I'm
towns, all of
confused.
these towns voted yes,
Okay.
the way we did, but they have moratoriums right now.
Right, and we don't have a moratorium, so you're saying if we put in a moratorium on marijuana, we're protected?
No one can do anything until we can further think about it,
Other than the ones that are already in place.
other than the ones, right?
Yeah, the two
No.
that are.
No, we have.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, one has a building permit already, so they're,
Right.
oh, sorry, you're
No, 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 no.
manufacturing. you're talking about-
BGG doesn't have a building permit.
No, VGG has a signed agreement with Freetown, with Freetown, and they still had a moratorium. Now, maybe they did it illegally, I don't know, I'm just saying that this is the information that I pulled up.
But I'm just going
So-
based on the solar moratorium, if they're already in process, it doesn't affect them, it only affects
I
what
don't
is
know,
coming in.
it did for Freetown.
You know, there are ways to get protection,
Well,
which
that's-
we know are
right.
the submission of plans or
Right.
having a building permit.
Right.
Right.
BGG had a deal
But it wasn't.
in Andover as well,
Yeah, so
and the town
BGG
always brought it up.
did
And they
not
did it
submit
because they had
Did
town,
not accept it.
VGG
Is
had a
that
town,
correct?
in
It doesn't
North
affect it.
Andover had a
Doesn't
meeting
affect
in
it. They
town
still submitted the plan.
that said no retail,
Okay.
and that's how they killed it. So they could go ahead and still do whatever they wanna do, but they couldn't grow anything to sell for retail, only for medical.
I think what we should really focus on though is just making sure that you don't have that we go back to the 2. Let's go for the 2 and let's get it off of 5 acres or more, 10 acres or more. Let's do 2.
So the problem in front of us is, next week, we have a meeting, and it's 4. We neither have to vote, we have to vote to either approve or not approve.
To recommend.
I'm sorry, to recommend, the citizens petition to kill the new zoning bylaw. So that's what our next meeting is about. And the only
Okay,
reason, and I'm sorry that I made this meeting long by adding all this, putting all this stuff in.
Sorry, no,
but
it needs to be discussed.
I did all this research, and I wanted us to make sure that we went home and
Right.
pondered about possible solutions and what they think the route, the direction of the town. I said, I looked at the master plan about, you know, how, the agricultural versus residential, I can give everybody copies of all this stuff. And just, think hard for next week, and so we can hear the citizens out and figure out what is the best way to make sure that our town is heading in the right, doing the right thing, the right direction, and, We can't go back in time, all we can do is move ahead and fix. I mean, again, our only job is the, you know, the zoning stuff, and we just do it right, and,
Would it be advantageous to have, either Cosgrove or Silverstone, Jonathan, here at that meeting?
Sure.
I mean, to answer these questions, like, could we put a moratorium, can we do this, can we tweak this, can we do it with, you know, and that way we will have somebody who
I
can
think that's
answer
an
some.
excellent idea.
I can't answer these questions, I
Correct.
don't think anybody at this
No.
table can answer these
No,
questions.
and we need a professional so that we get these answers right the first time.
Well, the second time.
So.
Yeah.
Would you like me to ask Robin if Jonathan could attend?
Somebody could attend that
we
could.
can have an attorney that can answer
that
our
we
questions.
Can answer our questions, not so much maybe the people's questions, but the board has questions that we would like to have answered. If we're expected to give some kind of yay or nay, I'm not comfortable with doing
No.
it without one.
I'm not comfortable, you know, in either, I think that something needs to be done, but killing this is only gonna make it worse, and then what happens if it gets killed, and then we have to wait? I mean, if we wanted to have if we decided that we needed to go and vote for, have a special town meeting, another one, to vote for a moratorium, how long would that take? So if we had if we used our
legally
August.
6 weeks out, it
So-
takes 6 weeks to post everything, so
Well, the
that.
selectmen have to call a special town meeting now,
Right,
and they might not do that until they would normally do it.
that's
So
the
they,
other
so
thing.
they
That's
might
up to
say no
them.
too, so so potentially it could be, when's the fall town meeting, in September?
No,
I mean,
it's in October.
So would we be unprotected with 5 acres open for that long?
Oh my
And think, remember all the solar ones that came in to block,
Right.
their spot? We're gonna be getting all these
Oh, they're gonna all lock them
submissions.
down. As soon as word gets out.
So what's gonna happen then? And it's just the risk factor, it's a
It's
little
huge.
scary, is that what's gonna happen? And maybe half of them, 80% of them won't happen, but now they're grandfathered in, is that potential that.
That's right. Look at what happened with with solar. As soon as the moratorium was even whispered in the wind, we had all these subdivision plans coming in.
You need some that weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can speed bumps.
I mean, we can do everything that we can by
By
law
law.
to, with the planning board, we're supposed to be planning this town out, but there's so many legal, guidelines on what we can do. Can we take care of odor, can we take care of sound, can we take care of, right, the same deal, but at the end of the day, it's there.
I don't know, you couldn't take care of litter or a fence or a buffer. I hear 400 acres going to pot tomorrow morning. I just heard this whisper in the wind.
I know.
Tomorrow morning, I'm calling CBS in Pembroke, Mass. I'm talking to Bob Lee, and he's been setting these places up. And I'm gonna find out everyone I can to come look at my property about doing it. I can't protect a few beef cows from trash and noise, and
This really is no discussion.
maybe we can have greenhouses.
Right.
You have some decisions.
So I emailed you the decisions for the Colvin Road solar, the definitive plan on that site, and the bunch, reduced run and special permit. And so you had a chance to review the decisions. Do you have any comments or suggestions?
No,
Looks
good.
good.
Good to go.
So do you want to vote on each one and have authorized the chairman to sign?
Yeah, let's make a motion, we authorize the chairperson to sign, Bosch reduced frontage.
The 55
For
Rams
for
one.
Birch, you've already approved it.
Yeah, just to have a
Decision,
sign,
so just to authorize
authorize the
sign.
signature. Yeah.
Second proof.
Second. All in favor?
Aye, so moved. That was the last meeting you.
Yeah, but, don't have to vote and decide on the conditions? Oh, okay.
So that's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For next meeting, who among the board can attend? John, hopefully
Yeah, I can be here.
should be appointed.
That should be fun, but,
So we'll have 4 voting members.
So
Yes,
so
we'll have
that's
it
all, the selectmen have in the past not done the joint approval. So, assuming that they do the joint approval, and Don will so kindly get sworn in either
That
that
night
evening
or-
or that morning.
Right.
We'll still have 3.
You could vote as soon as you're
We'll have
sworn in.
three.
Yep.
Okay.
It's at 6:40, so
And if,
he should be able to run
Karen's
over.
still there.
Yeah.
What's that?
The meeting's at 6:40. Karen's here until 7
Okay,
usually, or
okay.
7:30. Maybe he can run right over and do it that
So you
way.
don't have to come, I know you wanna be in the town more, you could.
so we
You're
get an
the only
office.
one.
There were 3 there?
Yep.
There's a couple.
So we have the 107 Colburn, okay, do we have to vote on them separately, yeah?
I think the vote was for all 3.
Yeah.
One, two. And we have minutes.
Oh, minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second, minutes
Which meeting was that?
Minutes of March
22.
and April.
And April 4th, did everybody review them?
Yep.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, new planning director.
Yep.
It was, I'm not sure where it was posted, does anybody know, Dawn, did you happen to post this anyplace?
I
that-
didn't, I did see it.
You saw it?
I didn't see it with a Google search, but I did find a link to it.
Where?
I think it was on the planning site.
It was on a planning site?
Yeah.
So, we got one application, did everybody get it in their email and they reviewed it? We can talk about, we can do this at the next meeting, we can discuss it, I didn't even print it out. I just didn't
I have it at work.
to detail, I skimmed it, but I didn't detail look at it, and, we can discuss that application. The little concern that I have is, the original one had to contact our HR director, Anna Jane, because I just wanted to be part of it. I just, you know, I have that weird little thing about me. And her name was taken off this as a contact person. It was just like coincidentally just taken off. And I'm not sure if it was just a mistake or that's the way we're doing things around here or what, but I'd like to have this changed. and
Reposted again?
Reposted and added with the name on, because not that anything's happening, I just want to make sure that we
It's
get
nice to
every
be in the
single resume when they come in to give us more time. I don't
Exactly.
Agree.
Is that all we have?
Bill, did you have a couple other things, or are we all set? You just-
I don't know. Is there anything else?
Something in the beginning?
I think we're good.
We covered everything?
Yeah.
Actually, one more thing. Bill, if you have time, you mind contacting the owner of Hammond Woods just to check in? Because I know about a year ago, we talked about completing the road.
I did actually send them an email.
Any
I
feedback?
haven't gotten back to them yet, so.
All right, when did you send that?
Last week, I believe.
Last week, you got no?
I'll follow up.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind,
Okay,
just,
sure.
for the neighborhood,
Okay.
please. Because I think he's pretty much close to being done and.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that he was on a schedule last year to complete for May, and he has done nothing since last November. We're now July.
So I'll let you know next week.
Yeah, I appreciate it, thank you.
So if that's everything, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.